Triple six, triple six, triple six, smoke down, 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 really high, man, I'm about to shout. Triple six, triple six, triple six, smoke down, 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 really high, man, I'm about to shout. Triple six, triple six, triple six, smoke down, 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 really high, man, I'm about to shout. Triple six, triple six, triple six, smoke down, 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 down. Triple six, triple six, smoke down, 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 really high, man, I'm about to shout. Triple six, triple six, triple six, smoke down, 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 high, really high, man, I'm about to shout. Triple six, triple six, triple six, smoke down, 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 really high, man.
The angels creating illusions. The substance infest in my brain cell is causing confusion. I picture Teflon in slow motion, it's piercing through flesh and continues to cruise. And wait, think straight, don't haste, pace, penetrate, face, ace, safe, place, base. Damn, I think I'm crazed. Terror's the error, no errors within my terror. Are you scared of the six double accent, demonically elegant elements of manic depressive aggressiveness? Stress me, bitch, and you will feel the strength of my weapons kit. Trick, curry, hit, curry, dickery, doc. I smoke top notch, bud crop drop. The D, the O, the P, the E. I need the P, the L, the U, and T.
What's up?
Me and my partner Tiptoe about to do a homicide. Cranking up the ride, finna go out on the east side. First I roll a blunt so rappers like us can get high off the split. So when we get the cap, we won't have no pity when we kill. Rolled up on the set, real slow, with the lights out. Then I see my enemies wanna cap them with the sawed off. Buster standing on the corner sipping on some Alizé. That's when I got the tick through in the clip and then commence to spray. Jump back in the shit, burn rubber. As I left the scene, still blink from last night, so kill it to Tommy right, just ain't no thing. Ballin' downfield, headed towards CTO. Find me a getaway, pack my bags and lay low. Go and pop the trunk and put the pump in the plastic bag. Buried in the yard of the house that my father had. Now these suckers fearing me with rumors lurking on the street that I shot another, left his body like a refugee. Yellow tape, chalk bodies, blood on the concrete. Won't go to jail now or later. Step to me, you'll meet your maker.
Watch your back, cause you might get smoked. I shot a motherfucker.
Meet your maker, meet your
Watch
maker.
your back, cause you might get smoked. I shot a motherfucker.
We was lounging in a steamer at a light, laid back, couple of max, tried to jack, so we had to peel some caps. I popped one in the leg, sliced the other with a knife. I don't care about spirits haunting me, I still be smoking blunt street. The other robber grabbed Tiptoe, tossed him out the car. They got us stuck between trucks, they done went too damn far. He grabbed Tiptoe by the head, put the pistol to his face. I act like I ain't give a damn. Stood still in one place, then I pointed the barrel. He pointed his and told me drop the gun. That's when he messed up. Tiptoe broke on his ass and started to run. Now your ass free, I'm gon' cap this fool now, not later. Run over his ass in the steamer turns. Trick, meet your maker, meet your maker, meet your maker.
You might get smoked.
Meet your maker, meet your
Watch
maker.
your back, cause you might get smoked.
Man of a black haven killer. I'm pimping and peeling these women and need the stitches that sound like.
All right. Apocryphon is working, but he's here. Songbird is here. Songbird is here. We're live on YouTube. So if you get sick of the ad breaks, check us out over on YouTube. I think I have the link. Where do I have the link? Sorry guys, this is a little new to me with the YouTube. If you're there on YouTube, send a message. This is YouTube, the YouTube link. So, we're going to begin our debate in about 20 minutes. Let me just see if this works. Try that again. This fucking thing is always a pain in the ass. There's Apocryphon over on YouTube. Let me see. Ah, there we go. Fixed it. Fixed it. So hopefully all this holds up and works well throughout the duration of the stream. The last time I tried to do any kind of multi-streaming, there were all these, excuse me, there were all these glitches and delays in the stream, blah, blah, blah. So hopefully that won't happen again. I suggest YouTube or Twitch exclusively from here on out. But excused. 2 more left. Thank you. What am I trying to say? Okay, because the last time I tried to do this, it was also, I also streamed over on hey, Andrea 97, thank you. I hope so too. The last time I tried to do this was a mess, so I'm hoping it's not a mess. That's the best case scenario. And, you know, I don't know, with this panel, I mean, we'll see, I don't know, like, you never want to, I just don't understand. I just thank you for the, thanks for that. It's nice, right? I did up the studio here a little bit. Still need some work. Reminder to everybody, and I'm going to say this a few times, we're interviewing Joe Costello Sunday at noon Eastern Time about his book, The Politics of Ape and Machine, Power as Organization. I realize it's a really weird time, so I don't know if anybody here is going to be able to make it. But catch the replay on WUSB when we play it on the radio. And, of course, check out the Substack if you haven't already, nonsmoker.substack.com. I anticipate finishing a Substack post by Sunday as well, a new one. So get ready for that. And, of course, Struggle Session Radio next Tuesday, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WUSB. I'm trying, guys. I'm trying to keep this thing going. It's not the easiest thing in the world when you have, like, a life, you know, but we're trying to keep it going. Is political debate still alive? I say no. But I participate in it anyway. Why? Because I got nothing better to do. Nothing better to do. So here we are. And tonight we're, of course, talking about the pending U.S. invasion of Venezuela. You know, I'm of the opinion that America will not invade Venezuela. I really don't see that happening for a whole host of reasons. But I do think that the Trump administration hopes that the Maduro regime will just sort of collapse, which is a very typical Trumpian sort of goal in that it's very short-sighted and not very well thought through, and is kind of like based on a very low resolution understanding of the entire region and the conflict in between Venezuela and the U.S. historically. I also think it serves as another part of the flood the zone strategy that Trump is sort of famous for at this point. In other words, just do a ton of shit at once and hope nobody scrutinizes like any of it, because there's just too much going on. So, we'll see. Like, obviously, I mean, I've been wrong before. I was sort of shocked when Trump bombed Fordo and Esfahan, the Iranian nuclear sites. I did not see that coming, at least not at that point. And after that happened, I was sure there was going to be some sort of ground invasion into Iran. Fordo, Esfahan, and Natanz was right. Yeah, Natanz. It's been a couple months now. And there was no ground invasion. It's not to say there won't be another war between Iran and Israel, but point is, I've been wrong before. Geopolitics is difficult to predict. It looks like I'm on track to being right about the Ukraine stuff, but I think that's not as much of a... I'm not as proud of that one, because that was sort of a simple prediction. We talked last night on stream about the loss of Pokrovsk and... the encirclement of Ukrainian troops, pending encirclement. It's ugly stuff. It's not to say that this hasn't happened with, or let me rephrase that. This has happened with heavy Russian casualties, as usual. There's like a very, very much a theme to this war. It's like these prolonged, like, battles in these, deeply entrenched urban positions in eastern Ukraine. And it results in heavy, heavy, heavy Russian casualties and heavy Ukrainian casualties and sort of an inevitable Russian victory, hard-fought Russian victory, which leaves the city in question in ruin, but gives the Russians some time to regroup, and usually serves as like a hit to the morale of Ukrainian soldiers more than anything. Pokrovsk is just another battle in a string of battles exactly like this. Avdiivka, Bakhmut. So, I don't know. I mean, listen, there's no part of me that like celebrates Ukraine losing, or Ukrainians dying, or Russians dying for that matter. I think the whole thing is so grotesque and horrible and disturbing. And 40,000 desertion a month in Ukraine. Well, yeah, so they're talking like close to 30,000 dead in combat. Just in was it October or November? I think October. Trump always says like lots of people dying. He's right. It's tragic. I don't know. The whole thing is disturbing on multiple levels. And, when I watch footage, I like see these Ukrainian soldiers talking about the war effort, especially the Azov guys who believe in the cause 100%. And you got to think like, damn, like, what about the long-term, hope for your country and your people? Like, where do you anticipate this is going? And I understand, like, well, they would probably say, like, well, we don't want to die. We don't want to live under the Russian yoke. We'd rather die. That sounds like a great... Thank you, Red Maze. That sounds like a great moralistic argument. I wonder if the millions of people living in Ukraine feel the same way. I don't know. I don't think any Ukrainian supports the Russian invasion. Western Ukrainian, anyway. But, at a certain point, I don't know. The amount of people dying, I mean, like, the flight from Ukraine as mentioned by Andriy. Am I saying your name right, dude? Andriy 97. Yeah, so it's sad. I mean, what else can you say? I did a 4-part series on Substack about the war and my thoughts on that. So you guys can check that out when you have time. All right. Gibbs says he's going to be 5 minutes late. The rat bastard. Call me Andy if you want. All right, that works. It's a little bit easier. So, looks like the boys are waiting. Anyway, so that's that. I don't know. What else is going on? I mean, I'm sort of only partly invested in this Yemen thing. Yeah, not to say it's unimportant, but Rerum Novarum over on Telegram compiled a list of Venezuela's Air Force assets on the ground. Should we take a look at that? I mean, I guess it's on topic, right? Let's see. Oops. This is Rerum Novarum on Telegram. Yeah, I'm not streaming on Telegram, but I tend to go on Telegram for, like, you know, I guess, like, updates about the conflicts, first-person updates, and alternative media. There's a lot of nonsense on Telegram, a lot of it. You know, it's by no means do I advocate for people to just, like, not follow any mainstream media and, like, just go on Telegram for all your news. There's, like, a lot of garbage on Telegram, but there's also stuff on Telegram you can't find anywhere else. So this is, what's the whole remark? I'd say Rerum Novarum is sort of reliable by Telegram standards. Most important and used Venezuelan Air Force headquarters are located at such and such, such and such. The site has an Air Force school at blah, 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 blah. I mean, it's all mapped out here. I don't know. It is a myth about Venezuela. I'm not saying Venezuela would defeat the United States in a conventional war, but it is a total myth. Oh. Another kinetic strike earlier today. Whoops. Sorry about that. This is December 4th today. Intel Slav I do follow, yeah. Is this even important? Like, will they kill us carrier with their old Soviet barely maintained jets? You're talking about Russia? I mean, or you mean Venezuela? You must mean Venezuela. Yeah, well, it's relevant in a sense of, I don't know. I'm not sure why it's relevant. I guess it's relevant because in the event there was a conflict between the United States and Venezuela, you know, what is Venezuela's capability of, like, what are its military capabilities? How could it defend itself potentially? And I don't know. Again, it is a myth that Venezuela is completely defenseless and would just get steamrolled. And this is the, you know, I don't know if the debate is going to go there, but this is the same stuff that these guys were saying about Iran. It was like, oh, Iran, we could easily blah, 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 blah. And it's like, well, I don't know. I mean, yeah, Israel had, like, an unprecedented level of success in its initial strikes. Iran did, by many accounts, recover rather quickly and was actually softening Israel's Iron Dome considerably and piercing through it in numerous instances with their ballistic missile system. People were insisting that Iran was, like, running out of missiles, which there was, like, no evidence to support that. And since the war, they've rebuilt a lot of that infrastructure. I don't know. Yeah, like, these guys love to play. I mean, we all love to play armchair general, but these guys especially love to play, like, you know, like, I don't know, like some kind of imaginary military strategy planning game where the assumption is just like America would just kill everybody. Iran has won the 12-day war. You know, I don't know if anybody won, you know, to be honest, but in a sense that Iran was not defeated and they were able to prevent Israel from decapitating the regime, and they with their nuclear program withstood the airstrikes, the U.S. airstrikes. In those three pretty important ways, they did succeed. Iran has 120K missiles. I hadn't heard that number, but I look, the official numbers were like, oh, they only have a stockpile of 2,000. Like, I don't know about that. I really don't know about that. I think it's considerably more than 2,000. I don't know if it's 120K, but I don't have all the intel. I don't have enough hours in Hearts of Iron 4 for that discussion, yeah. Well, I've played a lot of Command and Conquer, you know, and that's where my confidence comes from. All right, let me put my headphones in. We're about to hop on this bitch. All right. One second. Okay. All right. Let's see what's going on. So I'm gonna hop in here. He's still late, I guess. Fucking Gibbs. What's he saying now? Oh. They want my socials. Sorry, guys. All right. Where are these fuckers? You know, it's always something with this debate stuff. This is the official logo for debates. Let's see. Is he still in Wix? Fucking... Come on. Oh. It says lactoid. Wait a minute. I see you, Red Maze. Oh my god. What the fuck? This is annoying. I'm just going to jump into the waiting room. Whoops. Whoops. Sorry. Sorry, guys. Hold on. Okay. Okay. All right, so we're just going to chill here until they get their shit together, I guess. Which could take a minute. But the debate was supposed to start. See, I'm Nordic, so like if someone tells me 8:30, I'm ready at 8. You know what I mean? If someone tells me, you know, I'm not used to this. I'm not used to this here. Texas time. This Texas time where 8:30 means like whenever we get around to it. I don't know. Maybe we won't do the debate. Oh, there it is. Yo, Alistair, what's up, bro? Okay, whoops. NEVC. I'm in NEVC. Okay, here we go.
What the hell is going on?
All right.
Here we go. Mic check.
1, 2.
Grid 1 is gay. Okay, it works.
Got it.
What?
I was just mic checking.
You were. Which mic were you checking?
Well, I suppose both
mic.
of ours.
Big Mike. Big Mike Obama. You checking Big Mike?
Dirty Mike
I
and the
wouldn't-
boys.
That's been checked. I think I'll trust other people.
Tyler, you're muted, by the way, if you're talking. Yeah, no sound.
I bet it's the same for OBS too. I just did an update.
Hey, we got you. There you go. Thanks for the sub, by the way. Appreciate that. Hey, someone with as long hair as me. Look, there we go.
Hello, hello.
How you doing? You doing all right?
Yes. Hey, is there a way to just mute all the little bloop 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 messages in Discord?
Yeah, put it on streamer mode. That turns all that off. Thank you, Beth. We're about to start here in like 2 minutes. We're just getting text stuff. 1 second. All right.
I was over here making dingers
Always
and zingers
fun.
and shit. Nobody got to hear my greatness because my mic was fucking.
Always fun. Always fun. Who doesn't enjoy a good debate, right?
There's a little boy in there named Testy. Got smacked around. Got exposed
here we
as
go.
someone making shit up. And then after I dragged my nutsack across his bitch face, I bailed on out of there to play some Red Sack, and he's probably still seething mad. But that's why you're a viewer and I'm a speaker. Sit back and listen, bitch.
Well, unfortunately, Tyler, nobody heard that rant because I just now turned on the sound. But except for us, so, we're the only ones who heard that.
I'm not saying it the third time. It's so manufactured.
I'm sure that you can type it out in chat, the transcript of it, or take a clip from your channel. We'll literally all right. I'm
No,
sure Testy will
that
have
kid
it
in your
all
chat got all the time he deserves from Papa. That's all. I educated him, and now I'm moving on.
Fantastic. All right, well, let's back to the regular schedule. I'm glad to be back. I had to take a little time off from traveling and it was good. We did the debate con, we did the Twitch con, we did the Phoenix Destiny thing. I'm tired, but now we're back. Thanks, Grid. Big shout out to Grid for having me host this debate con event. Want to big shout out to Grid for that. Thank you so much. If I hadn't
Yeah, that was rad.
I've enjoyed it a lot. Thanks for doing that. But all right, moving on. We're gonna be talking about today on "Give Me a Break," the Venezuela invasion. If it's the Don Roe doctrine, we kind of talked about this a little last a couple weeks ago, but there's been some significant developments since then. So let's dive into it. I'll start with you, Powder Dusty. It's your first time here. Tell us what you think, who you are, and the opening thoughts.
Thank you. My name is Taylor. My channel is the Powder Dusty. Well, I was hoping to go last. I'm coming into this a little bit cold. I mean,
I'm sorry.
think, yeah. What do I think? I think that we need to stop blowing up boats. I think that we need to stop the war on drugs because I think it's an excuse for us to. It's an excuse for whatever they're really trying to do. I don't believe that it's actually an attempt to fight drugs. But that's for Tyler. No, but that's really all I got so far. We'll see when we get into it.
All right, Mr. Non-Smoker.
Hey, twitch.tv/non_smoker. So yeah, I mean, I'm just curious to see how anybody would advocate for us to like intervene in Venezuela. Like the only way it could make sense is if, like once again, the American politics, this is like a purely partisan thing. The only way you could defend this is if you would defend Trump doing anything, and I just don't see anyone making a compelling case for why we can do this without treading into ridiculous propaganda territory. So I'm kind of interested to see what other people have to say because, I don't know, I know where anybody with common sense stands on the issue already.
All right, thank you so much. Grid.
Oh, me? Cool. Got it. All right. So I'm Grid One Motorsports. I am an unreasonable man in most places. Otherwise, you can find me. I'm pretty easy to find. So I mean, I really like this speech. I will give you the reasoning. Historical precedent says that we can blow boats out of the water. We did it back in the 1920s with the rum runners. We've done it many other times throughout history. It's what we do. We don't want it coming in the country. If you keep sending shit in the country, we're going to blow your boats out of the water. It's the way it is. So we have historical precedents. There is some discussion about whether or not it's legal. We'll get into that here shortly. I'm sure. I personally think we're in kind of a gray area. I would like it to be a lot more clear, but as of right now, we have historical precedents to blow boats out of the water, and let's blow some boats out of the water. It's an easy thing for Venezuela to fix. Don't send fucking boats full of drugs over, and we won't blow them up. It's a real simple thing. Super easy. Simple, easy to remember. That's me. Anyway, gotcha.
All right, thank you so much. All right, Mr. Dylan Burns. Also, guys, if you don't know Dylan Burns, we just reviewed his newest documentary on Tuesday, and I really enjoyed it. By the way, it's got a lot of good on the ground footage and kind of shows the civilian life, and then on the action with the soldiers, and it's real good. I really enjoyed it, Dylan. You do good work. I hope you keep it up. But yeah, what are your opening thoughts here? And I'm gonna post the link in chat, guys. So check it out. But go ahead.
Thank you, my fellow long-haired brother. I do appreciate that. My opening thoughts. So I don't think this has much to do with drugs. I do think that Trump doesn't like drugs. I think most people don't like the importation of drugs. But Venezuela is not a drug-producing hotspot. It is a spot where drugs are smuggled above the northern coastline of Venezuela to a lot of Caribbean islands, and there are a lot of other points from those Caribbean islands. From there, then they can enter the United States and the southern United States, Miami, that area and such. But to make this about drug enforcement, I think kind of obfuscates from the bigger task I think Trump has at hand, which is trying to remove Nicolas Maduro from power. Marco Rubio, who is his national security advisor and his secretary of state, which has not been done since Henry Kissinger, is a long-standing cheerleader for the Behead Maduro fan club in Washington, D.C. He has been an advocate against it for the longest time possible. And the majority of the Republican Party, irrespective of any recent, anti-interventionist bona fides that some might claim to, um, they are interventionists when it comes to Latin America, particularly socialist Latin American countries in American history. And it's not different today. It's still the case. And so I think this mainly has to do with removing Maduro from power. And the conversations that Donald Trump is having with Maduro, as has been recently reported by press, seem to be around that. And so I think the question, we can have a conversations about drug enforcement. We can have a conversation about bringing stuff into the country. But I think the bigger conversation is probably whether or not the United States has a right to remove Nicolas Maduro from power, and whether or not it's in America's interest to remove Nicolas Maduro from power, because that seems to be the main focus of the operation. You don't need 15,000 soldiers to do this drug enforcement operation. You don't need the General Ford. You don't need the largest aircraft carrier in America's arsenal to do that. There's an other pressure-based diplomatic effort going on here, and I hope we can talk about that.
All right, yeah, I hope we get into it. Mr. Castle.
Hey everybody, thanks for having me. Gibbs, my name is Castle. You can find me on Castle Guard YT on Twitter and YouTube. I kind of lean center left in most things with nuance, and I think this is a topic with a lot of nuance to it. I'm all for
How is there nuance, dude?
exceptionalism and American might in that show of force to make sure that we can spread our Western values across the world. But I also think at the same time,
you're doing a really good job of that.
For example, in Ukraine, I would love for us to help Ukraine more, and in Venezuela, I think that we're overstepping ourselves a little bit. So in this case,
I would love to kill Russians.
But at the same time, if you look at what that would accomplish and what we've done in the past with taking leadership out of countries and the power vacuum and problems it creates thereafter.
I wonder why we have socialists, populist socialists all over Latin America with huge mass support from their people who primarily come to power utilizing like an anti-Western or at least anti-imperialist rhetoric and agenda. I wonder why. If flexing our might is such a coercive way to get other people to support the American way and want to adopt American values and so on and so forth, these people are fucking stupid. They're not going to go to war.
The further we can stay away from actual war, especially land war with Venezuela, the better. And I think we should look at this from as far as we can go before we take any military action.
All right, thank you so much. Yeah, last one is Tyler. All right, listen, I never get to go last because I have an A name, so I get to sound like a genius here because I've heard all your thoughts and I get to like rebut them. So, interventionism is based on that's going to be where we start today. This is just another one of Russia and China's allies, sanction and tariff-dodging trade partners that we have isolated off of the world stage. Just like Syria, just like Iran, just like Iran's 6 proxies, this is now another card being removed from the table and is allies with our actual geopolitical rivals, Russia and China.
I don't know why I do these guys, because this dude is always bad faith. He's always bad faith. It's not a serious discussion. It's like, I think interventionism is based. It's like, dude, you guys, these people make fun of the ACP, for being over the top and ridiculous. It's like, it's so much more over the top than any tanky content producer could ever fucking dream of being. Most peaceful world we've ever had, where there are multiple massive wars are going on right now, millions of people dying.
All sorts of shit with them. They finally, after being sued in court 20 years later, paid some of the settlement money for all of the oil companies they just held at gunpoint and forced out that were all U.S. owned. That just happened a few years ago after a decade. The war on drugs as well. Imagine if we looked at other wars like this. Well, the war on drugs.
Imagine if we fought the war on drugs instead of like pardoning fucking drug lords from Honduras, like Juan Orlando Hernandez.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, yeah.
You didn't insult me, but we'll get there. We'll get there. So I gotta. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So this is the amount of copium in this room right now is awesome. First of all, literally the entire country is drug smugglers. Who said they weren't drug smugglers? Or who said they weren't in the business of making drugs? They literally have entire villages that are enslaved to grow.
It's decentralized. The drug networks in Venezuela are decentralized.
Decentralized. Who cares? They're fucking.
It matters when that's your reason for going in to decapitate the regime. It means it won't stop the drug dealing.
Well, I like. I want to.
Do you know that we have right now? Do you know that right now, since 2020, we've had a. Actually, wait, am I wrong on that? Yeah, 2020. We've had a $15 million bounty on Maduro's head. He won't leave his country because if he does, he's dead. Somebody's going to collect the $15 million. Oh, wait, there's more. It was increased in 2025 to $25 million under the Biden administration. The bounty was raised to $25 million. And then once Trump was in office, it was increased to, in July or August, just a month or so ago, it was increased to $50 million for that dude's head. $50 million. The United States government wants Maduro so badly, they will pay you $50 million to go bring me Maduro's head. You get $50 million bucks.
I don't understand what you're trying to say.
I want to like touch on something though.
Because you're claiming that they're not narcos.
Dude, Trump just pardoned a fucking drug lord. Juan Orlando Hernandez. Just pardoned him. How is it off topic?
Hold on. Let me reframe this real quick. Yeah. Let me just get into real quick. I want to touch on two things here. First, I think Dusty said something earlier. He's talking about how the war on drugs hasn't worked, right? And like right now, you know what price hasn't changed in the last 40 years? Cocaine prices, the same prices they've been since the 80s. And guess what? It's the highest purity it's ever been, right? So if that tells me the war on drugs has failed miserably, right? Whenever the only thing that's hadn't had to deal with inflation is cocaine prices, and the purity's gone up. So okay, clearly it's failed. So I definitely think it's more along the lines of there's some other agenda, which is remove Maduro, right? And I guess to my people like Dylan and Castle, who are like pretty pro-Ukraine, I'm a pro-Ukraine Republican. I would think that this is exactly what Tyler said, where it's like, hey, we're taking out another domino that's tangentially related to Russia, and that's going to isolate it. And an aggressive response here means we're probably more likely to have an aggressive response against Russia long term. Do you two not see it that way?
The way I see it compared to Ukraine is this: the Ukrainians themselves are being attacked and they're being maimed and killed. And I just think that when you start to look at
this is like a Russian ally, so we would be taking out an ally of Russia, which hurts Russia, so which would help Ukraine. Like
a trade partner too, yeah.
Sure, but we're not even really helping Ukraine anymore. At least this administration isn't doing enough to help Ukraine. So I don't even know if we would be helping Ukraine if we had Russia go into sending more resources to Venezuela. At this point, we're making a deal, or at least this administration is looking to make a deal with Russia for Ukraine to give up a lot of their land. So I don't know if that's gonna help Ukraine at all. I think right now that the more that we spend money and time in Venezuela, it's not going to help as much as we think. Like, think about the outcome right now that if we went in and we took out Maduro, we know that there are always ulterior motives with the United States and why they look to take out leaders. And it's no coincidence that Venezuela holds a ton of oil on their underneath their land there. So I think this is more of the administration looking to extract resources from Venezuela than actually caring about whatever drug smuggling. I mean, think about the boats that were blowing up. They're not coming to the United States. We know they're not going to, Florida or Texas or wherever. They're going to other countries where then you can make the assumption that from those places they would send drugs to the US, but they're not even
What other
within our
countries are they going
waters.
to?
So why do we have the responsibility to take them out if they're
What
not if they're in
other
international
countries are they going
waters? I don't know, Antigua, Barbados, Cuba, wherever it is, but they can't even reach the United States, so they're not even coming to our shores. So how would you say that we have
Well,
the responsibility to
Cuba's
bomb
further
them?
from Venezuela, I think, than
Is that your position, Dylan?
How
Do you think that too? Like, kind of, do you echo what Castle's saying?
Well, there's a few things I wanted to respond to quickly. At the start, I was the one who said, like, I don't think this has anything to do with drugs. I don't think Venezuela is like a
Sure.
major drug producer. My point wasn't to say that Venezuela doesn't produce drugs, and my point was not to say that, and this is, I think, more important, Venezuela isn't a major passageway, you could say, like a conveyor belt for drugs to make its way to the Caribbean, and then from there go to other markets, be it the United States, be it in the Caribbean itself, be it elsewhere. What I will say is that I don't think Venezuela, in comparison to Colombia, in comparison to the man that Donald Trump just pardoned, in comparison to any other number of like South American leaders or governments, is particularly egregiously engaged in the crime of drug smuggling. And I especially don't think that a quick strike plan is going to eliminate that drug production. Because as Non-Smoker said earlier, drug production in the country is heavily decentralized. You take out the leadership, what you're going to do is you're going to allow the decentralized drug market to be able to come up to whatever the new leadership is going to be it capitalist, be it socialist, be it just a random thug. They're going to come to them and say, we'll make a deal with you. And that same deal, I think, will continue. So the goal would hopefully be from the United States is that you replace Maduro with somebody who will crusade in a war against drugs. But that requires a lot more than just blowing something up. That requires us taking the investment to actually go in there and make sure stuff stays stable, that there's elections, that things go the way that we want them to go. Like, there's so much that you have to invest in past that point than the idea of just like a few bombing runs, which is being floated around right now. Even if you diplomatically negotiate Maduro out of there.
And if I can,
I was gonna say their drug production is a domestic issue anyways. It's not our issue. I don't see why we would be blowing up random boats and saying, oh, we think that they're drug boats when we were spent decades guarding poppy fields in the Middle East.
And
because they don't care about
answer
drugs.
Gibbs's question. I'm sorry, I don't want to take the stage too much, but Gibbs asked me a question on the it was on Ukraine and whether this like knocks over another domino.
Yeah.
Look, it would be there is a truth to the idea that if the United States is not giving Ukraine the physical tools to apply pressure on the battlefield, how much does tipping over another domino really do for Ukraine? Well, there is still some room for assistance. Number one, as has been brought up before, Venezuela has a lot of oil. Venezuela has a lot of energy. And if you are able to open that up to markets that previously it was not open up to, that were previously dependent upon Russian fuel and Russian energy, then you can make energy cheaper for those countries. You can make it so that they have more providers, and you can make it so that their energy markets are more flexible and are more strong in the aftermath of cutting off Russian fuel. You also get rid of a Russian ally in South America, further isolating Cuba if that is of the interest of other people. But I think like most directly tied to Ukraine, it would probably be the fuel. It would probably be that being opened up. But that's going to take years of investment and reform. And it's, I mean, like the Venezuelan energy system is like, it used to be a kind of a wonder of South America. It's what helped fund all of their social programs. Now it's garbage. It's derelict. It's not doing fantastic. And so it's not like we go to Venezuela and we turn off the socialism switch and then the fuel explodes and then we all have access to that. It's going to take years. And so even though it could help Europe right now, it's probably going to help Europe even if Maduro collapsed 3, 4, or 5 years down the line.
Lots.
Yeah, I mean, it's very capital intensive to try to modernize Venezuela's oil production. So, like, the assumption that, okay, well, we decapitate the regime, and, like, let's just make all the assumptions, right? Like, anyone loyal to Maduro is immediately either, I don't know, like extradited or killed or whatever, jailed. They're all done away with. There's a lot of problems within Venezuela domestically that need to be resolved, which is going to involve like a prolonged, investment of time, money, resources, troops, etc. from the United States. I mean, you can make the very obvious argument that all of those resources could be best utilized elsewhere. But there's also something to the idea that like maybe you wouldn't get a maximal return on investment even doing all of that stuff in the best case scenario, because as Dylan said, in the time it would take to modernize Venezuela's oil production, I think the benefits, again, would be years and years down the line. So, look, I actually kind of want to shift this a little bit and try to point out that I think this is more of an economic war against China. China is the primary importer of Venezuela's oil. So if the idea is, well, we want to, destroy Venezuela's ability to export oil, and then whatever happens to the Venezuelan oil for the time being, who knows, who cares, let them rebuild it under some sort of like happy, I don't know, think tanky regime that we like, and maybe they'll figure it out years down the line, but we just want to cut off their oil supply to our adversaries. It's really going to hurt China, not as much as it's going to hurt Russia, who is a minor importer of Venezuelan oil. I also think another wrinkle to this that a lot of people don't talk about is the rare earths in Venezuela.
I would agree with the analysis that as far as trying to hurt Ukraine, I don't think that, or hurt Russia in the Ukraine war, I think it does very minimal to nothing for that to happen. I don't think Russia gets basically any oil. We actually still get oil from Venezuela through Chevron. Chevron has an agreement with Venezuela, and we still buy. I don't know how much. I could grok it up really quick, but I'm sure you can too. As much as we just don't get as much as we were. I don't know how much the equipment issues are right now in Venezuela. Obviously, it's been 20 odd years. That it's been kind of jacked up, and of course, obviously, there's a serious issue with knowledgeable people to run it. I don't know that they even have any, honestly, but it's a good pivot, but I don't know that it doesn't hurt us because we can still buy oil from through Chevron. We're not paying any more for it than we would anywhere else, and the Chinese do get the bulk of Venezuela's exports of oil.
Well,
but
So
let me,
hold on,
let me
hold on.
ask, no, well, hold on, I'm going to give it to you, Tyler, but like the
that
last
doesn't
one we
hurt
just was
Russia.
touching on something there at the end, which is the rare earth minerals, and I think that, and he brought up China, and I wanted to address that. I think this is maybe won't directly affect like Russia tomorrow if we took out Venezuela. I think Dylan kind of went pretty in depth on why it's going to be a long-term investment it would be in that case. But I think that it is a taking out of a member of this like alliance that's kind of like a raid against the U.S. Right? That's kind of like with that what you call it BRICS or whatever y'all want to call it, the new axis of evil. It seems like they're like aligned or tangentially aligned. And it seems it's like a step in that, whether it's China or whether it's Russia, they're both in cahoots. It seems like eliminating. And the rare earth minerals, I think, are becoming, I don't think are talked about enough. I think that non-smoker, I don't know if that's for sure where you were going with that, but I think that's a big factor. But I'll let. Do you have anything else you wanted to add on that? Then I'm going to go to Tyler.
I mean, just to finish quickly, that was, I thought, part of the calculus initially was like, okay, well, again, decapitate Maduro, right, and then just reap the rewards, take all of the natural resources you can. I mean, that's what a lot of you guys always advocate for with the pro-interventionism. And it's kind of
in this conversation.
Yeah, I'm referencing to prior debates, but at least in the case of Venezuela, a lot of the rare earths are controlled by, I don't know if it's right to say ironically or not, but also criminal gangs, most of the rare earths are mined not by the regime, but like these rogue groups who mine illegally. They have no regard for the environment, and they end up kind of through these sort of clandestine networks shipping the rare earths onto the world market, where they sort of cycle all over the place. And I only bring that up to say that the notion that crushing Maduro would mean just getting all of Venezuela's riches, including the rare earths, it's really not that simple. The rare earths production is not even controlled by Maduro. It's controlled by all these renegade little groups. And, you know, any removal, like, it's very similar in this way to Syria. Any remover of like a dictator or a dictatorial figure inevitably leads to this struggle of factions, each with their own interest. And it's then our duty, in a way, to clean that up if we intend to reap any sort of material rewards from this, which I think that the people who are planning all of this are aware of.
That's the goal? Because this seems like a pivot.
I don't.
This seems like a pivot. Do you think it's the United States' goal to clean up Venezuela?
I don't.
Because we somehow think we're going to get something out of it, or do you think that it's just as simple as we're tired of 100,000, 200,000 deaths a year from fentanyl?
It's not about fentanyl either. It's not about fentanyl either. Because it's not gonna make a significant dent, first of all, in fentanyl at all. I mean, Venezuela primarily is a drug route for cocaine. But in addition to that, there's massive, drug dealing networks all over Latin America, which are, again, decentralized networks. So removing this regime is not going to stop any of that.
But we're not, hold on. See, again, you keep saying that we're removing the regime. We're blowing up literal boats filled with drugs.
I think the goal is obviously regime change. Yeah, blowing up a few random people in boats is not making a significant dent in the global drug trade, dude.
If we wanted Maduro gone, we could literally do it in 7 hours.
Are you sure?
I don't think so. We tried it in 2020. We tried it in 2020. I don't know if you're aware of that.
Just to like give credence to something that's unrelated, but I think related at the same time. Like maybe I don't know how to rephrase this. My brain's working slow today. But it is Rwanda deal happened today, right? And that is basically because of the rare earth minerals, right? Like, that's why he wanted to do it. That's why he backed it. And he took it against the Rwanda side, against the Congo, basically, who's a Russian ally. And Rwanda's taking over France's contracts and whatever. And so I almost see kind of what Tyler is bringing up. And I think it's a point.
M23 in Congo just carried out a strike today, by the way, right after that deal was signed.
Taking out things. Do you not see that, Jared? Are you sure? It's like, why
if we were going after him to take him out, I would 100%. If we were landing troops and rolling up the shores with tanks, or we were sending in SEAL team whatever and blowing his head off in the middle of the night, if any of those things were happen, I would lend credence to what you're saying. But we're not doing that. We're simply blowing boats out of the water.
Yeah, but it's being done in conjunction with the argument that Maduro is a narco lord, and it's like a drug regime. And you have to understand the implication in all of this. And the reason that I would imagine we're even having this debate is because the U.S. is posturing as if there's going to be further military action that goes beyond just strikes on vessels.
Let's go to Tyler. He's going to try to get it. Go ahead, Tyler.
Okay, so
then Dylan, go ahead.
I get Dylan brought this to his oil point theory that he's trying to make. The original point that I was making prior to that about this hurting Russia and helping Ukraine was the trade route argument. It was that they have alternative trade routes that can dodge our sanctions, dodge our tariffs, and things like that. They're trading with each other. Since the war has started between Russia and Ukraine, trade has almost doubled between Russia and Venezuela. And then on top of that, so we take them out of the equation, we take Maduro out, that's could potentially a shit ton less trade going on. It's not going to take all of it away, but each incremental step. And you go to Iran. When Iran and Israel were fighting in that 12-day war, Israel took out almost half of its long-range launchers. They hit drone facilities, drone part facilities, weapons facilities, rocket facilities. They took out a ton of military production that goes on in Iran. And that even if they didn't take it all out, that hurts what Iran can then turn around and sell to Russia or give to Hamas. So hitting these pipelines and taking them out is effective in all sorts of ways that hurt them in the now. And the weapons, again, is something that probably... So, again, Venezuela...
And that's a much better argument.
Yeah. Well, I that's what I'm here for, is to make the absolute best arguments and be right 100% of the time. So thank you, Grid, for noticing. All right.
Does anybody
See,
think that we're actually doing
you
this
got a 1 in 10
over
ratio
drugs?
going. You got a 1 in 10 ratio going.
Yeah,
Does
I want
anybody
to
actually
go
think
to
we're
Dusty.
doing?
I want to go to Dusty, and then we're going to Dylan. Go ahead.
Jordan,
Dusty, go ahead.
hold on. I got.
Dylan got skipped again.
Hold on. Just
Well,
I got a couple more things.
all right,
I
go
was
ahead.
waiting
I'll
for
give
like
it back
10
to
minutes.
Tyler.
Yeah, let me get a couple more things. We were talking about Venezuela doesn't actually produce a lion's share of the drugs, a vast majority. What they do is offer safe haven to the people that are
They're
shipping the
trading.
drugs.
They're a trade route.
They're Qatar for Hamas in this situation. They're
Yeah.
offering safe haven for the people that are actually doing the bad things and the leaders and if we take out the smugglers, we're setting up deterrence. Of course, we're not going to make a dent in the global drug trade by killing a boat or two full of smugglers. It's to set up deterrence. It's establishing deterrence to tell them we're not fucking around. If we catch you, you're dying from that shit. It's already been passed.
Dude, there's shitloads of drugs still coming into America, though.
Yeah.
Okay,
We did not catch drugs coming into our country. We shot a boat out of the water and then set their drugs on it.
And we don't even really know if those were drug dealers, by the way. Can we just talk about that?
Our intel agencies.
You do.
Yeah, I mean that's a weak argument. That's fine. But I really want to
17 intel agencies said that Russia hacked our election.
All right, let's go to
The
Dylan.
same
Go
ones
ahead,
that said we had weapons of mass destruction, right?
All right, we'll go Dylan and Dusty. Go ahead, Dylan.
They did.
Dylan, go ahead.
The Russians did interfere in our elections, but that's besides the point. There's a few.
Wait. Yeah. Did we get that? Is that recorded? He just said that. Did we record that? Because
it's proven in Congress already. The Senate's got.
Oh my God!
All right, go ahead. Go ahead, Dylan.
Wait, are people? Was that recorded? Are we streaming? I was told this was a private conversation.
He's
bamboozled, bro.
Got him on record as saying that there's an election interference.
So as for the Congo and Rwanda, I just first want to throw out there, that's a war that Trump said he already solved. So I don't know why we're negotiating anything when it comes to Rwanda and the Congo. He said that war was already over, that he negotiated a peace deal, and that's fine. So I don't know why he would need a mineral deal to fix anything.
Strikes still being carried out today, by the way.
As for the Venezuelans and supporting Ukraine, they produced like 740,000 barrels. That's still quite a lot. That's still something that can have an impact. But in comparison to what reserves they have under their feet, that is the necessarily global earth-shattering, like market-changing potential of having the largest reserves on the planet. It's just they've never been able to meet that because their economy isn't very well managed, to be very blunt. As for the drug smuggling here, Venezuela is cocaine smuggling, but the majority of this cocaine is being smuggled to Europe, is going to the islands and then smuggles to Europe. And so again, I'm not saying that it's bad to stop drug smuggling. I'm not saying that, I'm against any type of enforcement. But the idea that after decades and decades of the war on drugs, us blowing up ships that are probably going to Europe, not coming to the United States, which so far have yet to really know of what impact that's had when it comes to, actually helping American citizens, helping American people who are at the other end of the needle here, at the other end of the actual drug consumption. So what are we doing here? What are we actually accomplishing by blowing up these boats? Especially since this is probably being done extra legally, which I would like to get into that conversation at some point, that it's one thing to say, hey, Congress, we're going to all come together and we're going to agree. We're just going to start blowing boats out of the water. It's not like this is something that's been done by a previous president before. This is something that Trump, as the executive, chose on his own that we were going to start doing. And Pete Hegseth has carried it out and has blown up 21 ships. And as we've talked about before, and this is the one disagreement I'm going to throw out with Tyler, that he trusts that these are drug smugglers. Rand Paul, who's not somebody I cite very often, but Rand Paul released the report recently from the Coast Guard saying that over the last year, 79% of the boats intercepted were found to be engaging in illegal, illicit drug smuggling activity, meaning that 20% of the boats that were intercepted in that time period were not engaged in illegal drug smuggling activity. We've blown up 21 boats. What's 20% of 21? I'm not saying that we know that to be the case. I'm just saying that when we have an administration that's being so untransparent about how this is happening, about who's on the ships, providing names, providing physical evidence, where they've decided to do it in one instance or in another instance, but then not to do it for the vast majority of the other instances that have not been approved by Congress, it leads to distrust. And this needs to have I mean, there's a question about whether this should be happening in the first place. But the fact that he feels so free to do this shows how much the JCPOA and other use of force for military authorization has degraded Congress's ability to just take their hand, put it on the president of the United States, and say, "That's not your job. That's our job. If we're going to start bombing shit, we get a say."
I would love to argue the legality of it with you, but unfortunately, it's all classified. The OLC opinion backing this is classified. All we have are hearsay from Democrats and Republicans saying what's in it, and then what it cites are other OLC opinions about Syria and Libya that we don't also have access to, unfortunately. So we don't know the legality behind it. It's hard to dispute it.
I think
But, I mean,
Tyler's just on
but
our
let's be
side and
clear,
doing a
the
bit.
JCPOA authorizations we're going off of are post 9/11 JCPOA authorizations. That's going to be the final legal underpinning for this. It's going to be the idea that Nicolas Maduro is running an organization similar in nature to Al Qaeda. And that's why America, with imminence, without a declaration from Congress, has to move in and just start bombing shit. Now, whether or not you agree that we should just start blowing up these ships, that we should just start bombing Venezuela, that the president should engage in that type of behavior, the idea that these types of forces are at all equal distant from each other, even close to each other, when it comes to the motivations of what pushes a drug runner, what pushes Nicolas Maduro, and what pushes the Islamist organization Al Qaeda.
So
Dylan, wait.
I don't disagree with.
Hold on, Greg. I want to like maybe reframe this real quick, and then I'll go to you and Destiny. I want to go to Destiny real quick because I have he's brought up several times. He doesn't think this is about the drugs, right? And y'all have argued the legality aspect of this, and I think it's interesting. All right, I tend to agree with you, Destiny, that it's not about the drugs, right? However, would you equate a cartel to be an equivalent organization to a?
Sorry, did you say Destiny a second? You said Destiny
Destiny.
earlier.
You said Destiny.
Yeah, it was like, when did he come on here?
Destiny. Am I being referred to? Or
No,
who is
Dusty.
Okay.
Destiny, listen, enough.
Not Destiny. Dusty. I think maybe my accent. I'm all stopped up. So
there's gonna be some memes there for sure.
Sure, yeah, they're gonna get me. It'll be like Mr. Beef stutters or some shit. It'll be fine.
That wouldn't have happened if they just allowed that cocaine to come through, right?
I'm saying, bro, the pure. Anyway, listen. Yeah. So do you equate it like cartel to like an equivalent danger to a terrorist organization? Because I know you're saying this is not about drugs. What do you think?
No, not at all. I think that I'm pretty libertarian. I think the war on drugs should end entirely. I think that a cartel is, first of all, a different country's problem. It's not our problem at all. I equate it more to a free market business than anything. But the point is that a cartel is not, their purpose is not to attack Americans. In fact, if they're selling product to America, they want Americans to survive. Whereas like Al Qaeda, that is their purpose and their intent. So no, not at all.
Greg,
Grid, you seem to take umbrage with that. Go ahead, Castle. But yeah, go ahead.
I was going to ask Grid a question because one of the arguments here is that selling drugs to the U.S. or running a drug cartel and designating them as a terrorist is the reason why we're doing this. But if you think about it, if that were the case, then why aren't we bombing the cartels in Mexico? I mean, Mexico is, some people would call it a narco state at this point. 90% of the fentanyl is coming.
These guys want to do that too. Not to cut you off, these guys want to do that too.
But then why are we attacking? But why are we attacking Venezuelan boats with like?
Dude, they just like attacking. That's like the thing these days. The pro-interventionism people.
One more extension onto that. Why not also European mafios? I mean, the mafia is one of the biggest drug dealers in the world. If any of that is actually crossing the transatlantic, can we do bombing runs in Italy?
Bro, just
bombing runs in Denmark.
Just bomb my block.
The limits of this.
Just bomb Huntington Station. There's crack dealers all over the place.
Well, we could try 30 years of diplomacy.
I'm gonna answer Tyler's earlier kind of pseudo question about how he couldn't. We can't really talk because their ROEs classified to some degree, and we only know some. So what the rumor is, and I believe this, is that since these boats fly no flags, they are not considered terrorists. They're actually and they're on the high seas. They are considered pirates. They are engaged in illegal activities on the high seas, and therefore that is the rumor of why we are able to go weapons free on those guys. I don't know. That seems like a reach to me, but that's the rumor. Again, you're right. It's classified. We don't actually know anything. It's just,
Guys, can we just come on? Jesus fucking Christ. Really, do we have to think about it this deeply? They're trying to do something that's big and flashy to look like they're making an impact, and they don't give a fuck. They don't actually give a fuck if these are really drug dealers. They care that the American people, everybody sees this on social media, and it's a big impact move. This is like classic Trump. It's not about stopping drug dealers. There's no way to even quantify it if it's had any impact on the amount of drugs coming into America. It's ridiculous to even assume that. And so the conversation shouldn't be like, is this really affecting the drug traffic? It's like, no, is this a signal that we're going to intervene in Venezuela and initiate a regime change? And it seems to be that some people believe that. I actually don't think that the Trump administration is even going to try that, by the way.
I don't think so.
I think that the potential for success of that's very low.
I think being bald makes you think you're now Charles Xavier.
You think hold on. You think the potential for success is very low?
I think killing Maduro is highly probable. I don't think it stops there. I think that there's a lot of research done on this, guys, that there's layers within the Venezuelan government and security apparatus that are in place just in case Maduro would fall. And it's of my opinion that, you guys remember back in I think it was mid-October, there was a report in the New York Times about how supposedly Maduro offered to give up everything. He would give up oil, he would give up this and that and the other, and just as long as America would not attack Venezuela. And yet nothing ever came of that, right? And you would think, if the U.S. wants regime change, Maduro's willing to surrender, why wouldn't they just accept that deal? And my assumption on that is that probably was not based in any fact. They were probably floating that story out to the media, hoping that the generals would overthrow Maduro, concerned that there'd be a lack of loyalty there, something like that. We have been trying to, through various diplomatic pressures and sanctions and other means, to cripple this regime, and we've failed consistently. There's a lot of loyalty for Maduro within the government, like it or not. It's very similar to Iran in that sense. And actually strikes, let me just finish, strikes on these random boats leaving Venezuela, that's not going to decrease support for Maduro. It's actually going to embolden people who do support him. It'll make him look like this martyr type figure, and oh my God, I'm the only one defending you from these imperialist gringos. We're making Maduro stronger because the president is a fucking idiot. And the fact that you guys haven't figured that out yet is kind of scary.
First off, your whole first part there was I know Trump's true intent, you're in the room with him. Whereas in reality,
it's classified.
It's mutual different things. They all could be true at once. Yes, he could be wanting to stop drugs. Yes, he could also be wanting the regime change that Republicans and Democrats have been working toward for 20 years on the same team. Obama, Trump, George Bush fucking kidnapped Chavez. Well, that's what
true.
They say. So yeah, this has been U.S. policy for decades. Of course, that could be part of it. Of course, showing it off in the media to get your poll numbers up could be part of it. It doesn't have to just be one of those things. It could be all of them. But you're saying no, it's just this. I know Trump's mind, and it's just this one cynical thing that makes him look like an asshole.
Do you think it's about the drugs?
I think that absolutely plays into it. I think that's his motivating factor because he talks about fentanyl all the time.
Yeah, but Tyler, I asked
Do you think it's a
it,
major
and you
or
guys
minor
never
factor?
denied it.
Wait.
Crime generally
Do you think
is
it's
a major factor.
or minor factor when picking Venezuela specifically? Because it didn't have to be Venezuela when it comes to fentanyl.
Well, I think that's a little bit more to it. One, there's history between
but
the
he's not
two.
picking on Venezuela.
Why Venezuela particularly? If there's so many, for me, I think it's regime change. But why Venezuela particularly, if not just for the social media points?
They refused to come to the table in terms of taking back their migrants earlier, earlier in the Trump second term.
Wait, but that's the point, Tyler.
You're explicitly saying that it's a lot more than the drug.
Yeah.
I think the drugs is maybe 1 or 2% maximum, if anything. It's such a minuscule factor in the grander scheme here when it comes to why they're going after the government.
Crime. Crime is one of his main things he keeps harping on. I think
that's what he says.
That's not our crime.
I understand that's what he says. It's one thing to say that and then pardon presidents who smuggle drug into the United States, specifically cocaine, the drug that is being smuggled through Venezuela.
That's empirical versus anecdote. Yeah, he also pardoned the January 6ers. That doesn't mean his policy isn't focused on cutting down on national
Well,
crime.
no, what I'm saying is I can see him blowing up any ships
He's
because
been
he wants
tough
to
on
present a
drugs
good
everywhere.
face
They're
on
literally,
drugs. I just don't
like,
see that being the main
making
motivator for going
huge
after Venezuela
seizures in
specifically.
Texas.
But he hasn't. So the point is that the reason why Trump is harsh on Venezuela and not Mexico is because he likes Claudia Sheinbaum and doesn't like Nicolas Maduro. That's
It's because
it.
they're not working
That's
with.
literally it.
Well,
It's the
But
same
that's what I'm
thing.
saying.
Mexico's at
If
least
Maduro-
attempting to work with us.
Yeah,
No, they're
Mexico's
not.
working with them. Venezuela's
Both
not.
want
Like
to
that's as
cross
simple
the
as that.
border.
I said
Venezuela
attempting. I didn't say
bad.
they were succeeding.
Why
They
would
put troops on the
Venezuela have to
border.
work with us on their turf to solve our drug demand?
Because the drugs are being brought in from a Venezuelan hosted gang that is working with the
And-
government.
It is
If-
part
By
of the
the way,
if-
government.
by the way, I'm sorry, Tyler.
Right,
Can
what
you explain
happens
to me
in
how my
Venezuela is
example
Venezuela's
of
problem.
Trump-
What happens in the U.S. is to bomb a boat outside of in Venezuela and say that that's addressing our domestic drug problem is absurd. Like the degrees of speculation required to have that make sense is crazy.
It's not. It's deterrent.
Tyler,
Pretty
I need
It's
to know
different from
why
somebody getting
is
on a
it
boat,
anecdotal?
maybe.
Why is it anecdotal for him to pardon a world leader that has been convicted of drug smuggling into the United States? Why is that anecdotal?
Do you
Because
know the
one-
story behind that?
It's anecdotal because even if it's
You can look it
irrelevant,
up.
even
Like,
the guy was
if you look
guilty-
up right now on Google, Trump
It's not
drug
anecdotal.
smuggling pardon,
Yeah,
you will see that
There's
he
more to
pardoned
the
a
story.
South American
Right,
leader
but
in the last
the
48
guy that was
hours for
convicted
drug
in New
smuggling
York of
cocaine,
drug
the
smuggling
very
was a
same drug that
president
was
of his
smuggled into the
country.
United States by those Caribbean pirates that we were blowing up.
Right.
Yeah. I agree. Even if, let's assume he's guilty. I understand what Grin's about to say here in a second, but let's assume he's guilty. It's anecdotal because it's one person versus what his actual policy is across the board on drugs. That's the empirical. You're like he's absolutely been against crime. He's been cracking down on crime with illegal immigration, going after particularly the illegal people first. I mean, people that weren't in the country illegally, that have valid deportation orders. What 2.3 million? I think he said at the beginning of his term. There's
It is
all
actually
sorts of
I don't
really
argue that there's
consistent. You guys
specific
keep saying
subsects
that
of crime
Trump
that he's
isn't
particularly
consistent,
hard
but
on.
he's
My
absolutely
point is just
consistent.
I just don't think this is a principled stand on this issue. And if you were to make that stand, you wouldn't make it in Venezuela.
I mean, it might be emotional. Probably more emotional than Trump refused to work.
Hold on. When
Let's go to
we are
Greg. Go ahead,
when we are literally having record drug seizures of drugs coming across the border from Mexico, and we still have a problem with Venezuela
why not
blowing
Mexico?
boats out of the water, all of a sudden starts making sense. Also, it is a very consistent view, as Tyler just said. Trump has very consistently been tough on crime. He wants to be seen as tough on crime. He is doing things that nobody else has bothered to do. Even when people say, yeah, why bother doing it? He's doing it. And he's been very consistent. It's you guys keep trying to say, well, I just don't understand why Trump is doing this. Well,
Grid,
well,
let
just
me
look
ask
at
you
the
a question.
totality of it. Look at the totality.
Let me ask you a
Well,
question.
look,
right?
I'm not a geopolitical expert on South America, but Venezuela and Mexico are two different countries. And if the majority of the drugs are coming across the border in Mexico, then wouldn't the strategy be to do something in Mexico, not Venezuela? I mean, like again, it's like. Before the election, when I was seeing
he's doing both
from Trump advisors talking
It's not
about
either or.
how to
He's
make
doing
military
both.
interventions in Latin America,
Why
the
not
majority
both?
of those reports had to do with Mexico for that reason. Very few of them had to do with Venezuela, if any.
Most of the politicians that Trinidad has killed and replaced with loyalists have been in Mexico. Absolutely, and Mexico's working with it.
Well, hold on. I do want to examine this a little bit, though, right? Like, so, like, I guess to Grid and other people say that Mexico. Well, like, Mexico is about to violate a water treaty with the United States in addition to like all the drug stuff.
I'd read about that. I'm not up on it, but I'd read about it.
Yeah, I mean, but they haven't, but they're about to, right? Because there's a drought everywhere. So, like, that's like a big deal coming up now, at least in my local region, right? And to me, it would make way more sense to be like, oh, let's go to war over a natural resource that they're not following up on a treaty. And oh, if we're actually talking about the drug problem, Mexico first. But to me, it's got to be what Tyler is kind of proposing, where you're taking out this block in their global chain for this to make sense. Like where it's the natural resources, the oil. That's really the only way this makes sense, with the drug stuff being like maybe a scapegoat. Like, how do you not see that? Like, how do you disagree with that, Grid?
I'm sorry.
How do you disagree with that take? Like, how do you like justify if this everything of what you're saying is true, not going for Mexico when Mexico's about to break a treaty and all the drug stuff? How do you
currently working with us. They're currently working with the United States. They're providing us with information. I just saw a video the other day of them blowing up tunnels where the people are coming crossing the border through these tunnels. They blew it. It's really impressive with the way the ground sank down. It was awesome. So I think and look, can we just all? I think we can all agree that Trump is willing to play as long as you're playing ball with him. He's perfectly willing to play ball with you. But the minute that Mexico says, "Yeah, fuck you," or they violate the water treaty, or they give us bad information on purpose, and Trump's going to be like, "All right, that's it, deal's over. Fuck you guys. Now we're going to send troops across the border," which he's promised to do before, and he literally had troops at the border ready to go across. So, he's very consistent. I mean, you don't have to agree with it, but
so why not Colombia then? Why wouldn't we go after Colombia if it was the drugs then? Why wouldn't we make like Colombia, Peru to be like the ones if it's not this globalist, like a global regime kind of like fight against these Axis powers over here? Like if it's not that, why wouldn't you go after Colombia, which is a higher production?
Honestly, wasn't on my study sheet tonight. Was whether or not to go into Colombia. I don't know what we're doing in Colombia right now as far as DEA enforcement or anything like that. But the assignment was Venezuela and blowing boats out of the water. So that's what I studied for.
We're working with Colombia.
When the fent problem got bad is when we handed Afghanistan back over to the Taliban and they shut down poppy production. Our drug problem is a direct product of the war on drugs.
That's true.
True.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I do a lot of heroin when I was younger. Fentanyl has been around for a lot longer. It was back like when the U.S.
wasn't prevalent. It wasn't prevalent because you could get your heroin.
Bro, No. I was getting heroin at like 16. I'm 37. That was like 21 years ago.
Fentanyl was not prevalent. Heroin was.
Yeah, that's when it started. When I came back to New York to visit, maybe like 12 years ago, 10 years ago, we got a bundle, and I sniffed a shack. You could tell immediately that shit was cut. It is not good. That's 12 years ago.
And if heroin addicts could just buy their heroin, they wouldn't be surprised by having it cut up with all sorts of weird shit that they didn't expect. Like I said, almost all of the drug problems, almost all the organized crime problems, all this shit is directly a product of prohibition.
A lot of talk in the last election about the affordability of housing, not a lot about the affordability of heroin.
Right?
Well, I mean, there's also I said this the last time we did the Mexico debate. There's always the debate. There's always the argument about I don't know, making like drug treatment more available to people, and helping drug addicts and doing things domestically to reduce the need to consume drugs. And I don't know, maybe that would help a little bit, instead of bombing random fucking speedboats, like leaving Venezuela. I don't know, just a thought.
I mean, for Grid and Tyler too, like I think that the problem with the argument that Trump cares about drugs and how it's affected, after this pardon of the Ecuadorian guy, I don't know if you guys remember, Trump also pardoned like 5 other massive drug traffickers. I mean, I know the libertarians like him, but Ross Ulbricht was the founder of the Silk Road, who basically was able to run drugs and firearms across the globe, and he pardoned him. So he clearly doesn't.
Ross Ulbricht actually never did any of that. He simply provided a mechanism for it, and he was
right.
Same with Mark Zuckerberg. I bet Mark Zuckerberg in that sense has facilitated more drug sales than anybody else ever.
Yeah, let's go.
Again,
that was like only no, that's not the same argument.
Dusty and I had this. We had a debate on this. We were a team on the Ross.
I hate this argument though from you, Castle, just because Biden gave clemency to a bunch of people that had drug sentences. Does that mean he's doesn't care about drug laws?
No American president cares about the drug crisis, guys. They don't give a fuck.
I think they do.
They don't. They don't. They don't. We invaded Panama. We invaded fucking Panama because Noriega is a drug lord, even though we knew he was a drug lord before that. And then Panama became a home base for the Cali cartel. They don't give a fuck about drugs, guys. If they did, they would do something about it domestically.
Obama, Trump, Obama, or Biden, and then Trump again. I can give you examples, not right now because I'd have to look them up. all of them passing policy to help people in the United States that are on drugs in their own different
Dude,
ways.
I mean, listen, I know you have a history, so do I. I work in drug treatment. Like, you know, people are seeing their benefits being cut and shit like that. Like, it's harder than ever. It's harder than ever before, I would say, to get clean now. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that the federal government, state governments also, they don't take it seriously. In fact, a lot of them have shifted over the treatment model to, like, not even preaching abstinence anymore. There's legal weed everywhere. It's like, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, like,
The hospitals down here will hand out not just clean needles, but clean meth pipes. That's crazy
yeah,
to me.
which is fucking. I mean, I get the harm reduction thing. It does make sense from like a public health standpoint, obviously.
The
but
needles make sense.
Yeah,
Needles make sense.
The
Handing
meth
out
pipes, I don't
meth
know,
pipes
but
does not make any sense at all.
That just sounds like it's for a good time, maybe. But
right, it's a party pack.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, dude, Iran-Contra and the crack epidemic, I mean, this is like standard stuff. Like, we've promoted drug use in America consistently. I don't know if it was always deliberate, really. You know, I don't know if I go that deep into it, but it's clear, like, a lot of our international policy and our interventions, especially in Central and Latin America, have proliferated drug use, and the government is totally fine with that. They consider it, you know, a necessary evil.
Let me reframe this a little bit. Let me go to Grid and Tyler here on this one. Here, so okay, y'all seem to be the most hawkish on this. What like level of action would you be okay with by Trump and the Trump administration against Venezuela? Are you talking full-on invasion, regime change? Like, what?
And I don't think congressional approval or no?
I mean, both, either or. You can explain. Yeah, let's hear. What do you think?
I'll go first so Tyler can organize his thoughts, because I'm very cut and dried on this. And I've thought about this because it's been a subject that we've been talking about quite a bit lately. While I'm, look, if we blow speedboats out of water with narco guys running drugs and shit, fine, whatever. But we have a horrible track record when it comes to replacing governments. And all it ends up doing is causing us more trouble. I would much rather us just try and basically contain Venezuela enough until it just fails on its own, and take away their revenue streams as much as we possibly, as far as drugs go, and getting help from the U.S. as much as possible. And either Maduro gets taken out and somebody collects $50 million for putting his head on a pike, which at some point one of the guys close to him is going to look at that and go, "I'd like to be boss. And not only can I be boss, but I can get a $50 million payday." And,
why do you think it hasn't happened yet?
Yeah, why do you think they wouldn't just kill the guy who brought the head and keep the 50?
Right.
It needs to be 51 million. Looking for 51.
Yeah. But I just don't think that we should be installing governments anymore. I think we've proven we have a horrible track record at it. We don't need to do that anymore. I'm a non-interventionist for the most part. Look, if boats come towards us, fine, take care of that. But we don't need to go into somebody else's country looking to fix their fucking problems. I would much rather let them just fail on their own.
These people are guilty of being on a boat.
What about you, Tyler?
You are as guilty as they are. You have a boat, right?
I do have a boat.
That's what they're guilty of, is having a boat.
No, they're not. That's not what.
Tyler, what about you? How far would you want them to go?
I don't want any laws to be broken, but congressional approval.
That's a hell of a clarifying statement.
If congressional approval was given, I think I would be on board with as far as an Afghanistan-like takeover of Venezuela.
Nice.
Maybe Afghanistan was a mistake.
Tyler, you cut out on my end for just a second. What did you say?
An Afghanistan-like takeover of Venezuela, where we're there for about.
That's what
yeah. Does that include the 20 years and $2 trillion? Or
Japan has so much better connotations, but you had to say Afghanistan.
Japan, I know, and South Korea, and Germany. I think leaving Afghanistan was a mistake.
Tyler, I had such high hopes for you.
That's where I side with the neocons, man. Nation building is a pretty good thing. Why not make everywhere like America? Then we can go on vacation places again.
Inside every Venezuelan is an American waiting to come out.
Well, go ahead,
Venezuela looks like they need some democracy.
Inside them also is some dogs, so maybe that'll convince them.
So, look, I do want to throw a few things out there.
Man,
what percentage? And I know we're going back to drugs for a second here. what percentage of drugs coming into the United States is coming from Venezuela, right? Because if we were making a decision to make this intervention based upon drugs, then doing this and investing all the manpower, investing all the money, I mean, we have 15,000 soldiers. We got 14 big ships, including the largest aircraft carrier, the Ford, in the entire U.S. arsenal, just floating off the coastline. Yes, that is a pressure cooker. Yes, that makes people around Maduro think of options. Yes, it makes Maduro have to keep everything on high alert, and it puts him in a difficult position. But it also costs a lot of money. And if after 2 years all we
Now,
did
those
was
guys are getting
think of,
paid anyway.
well, I mean, it costs money for the
It
fuel
doesn't
to
matter
like
where
have the
that
ships
it
go
doesn't
over
matter where
there,
that
and like
aircraft carrier is parked. We're paying
it
for
costs
it.
money to bomb things.
Yeah, you don't think it costs more to
it does cost.
station it out there than it does to
It's
park
not just
it?
a question about the cost of the personnel. It's also a
I
question
bet
of the
it does.
cost of the entire operation itself, and depending upon how long this runs,
Actually,
the
I
price
do have
tag on that
I have
will
a
go more into
non-smart
the
ass answer for this.
billions
Me
of
too.
dollars. And so when I think about the money invested, the time invested, the international reputational damage we're doing to ourselves, it just doesn't make sense based off of drug enforcement for us to be doing what we're doing right now. Now, based
so
upon
I have a
America's
non-smart
national
ass
security
answer.
interests, based upon something that's different from that is
Yeah.
asking what would be best for America in this situation. If Maduro was to go, that's 740,000 billion barrels of oil, 740,000 barrels of oil that is more available towards a Western ilk than necessarily China. That is a country that does have rare earth that is controlled by gangs we might be willing to do business with in order to get access to those rare earth. Does that mean we should do business with those gangs? Not necessarily, but what's in our nation's best interests? Maybe it is in our nation's best interest. And
Get
so
him
if
out of
we
there.
intervene
I have a
based upon
non-smart
that,
ass answer.
I could see Marco
this.
Rubio, I could see the people in immediately Trump's orbit just thinking, look, invading, putting troops on the ground, that's too costly. Standing back, adding on the pressure year after year, just seeing what happens while trying to avoid too big of a political risk, a bombing here, a bombing there, waiting for something to happen. That seems much more up Trump's alley as a historical fence sitter.
Okay, so I have a non-smart ass answer. First is I actually would rather the Gerald R. Ford be off the coast of the Americas, south and north, than parked off the coast of Afghanistan and near Russia and all of that right now, because I'm tired of fighting wars in the fucking desert. So yes, park that shit right the fuck off of the coast of Venezuela. I'm perfectly fine with that. It costs the same, and it's an easier flight home for our boys when they need to take Liberty. So so that part of it I don't care about. I don't see that as a drain on our resources. We're gonna pay, those guys get paid no matter what, and we're not. I don't think it's costing us anything. As far as the munitions,
costs,
we
maintenance,
can
none of that.
we can even write that down as, I mean, we fly those flights, we send those bombs. Every single day, the United States military blows shit up. I just don't see this as, we're not fighting a war. We're not fighting a war. We're just, occasionally smoking a camel. I mean, not a camel, but I mean a cigarette boat, and it's fine. And I kind of, when it got a little bit smart ass there at the end, but seriously, I don't see that we're spending a ton of resources to do this. But you're right, we are getting a lot of mileage out of it. There's a lot of pressure on Maduro. There's a lot of pressure on the layers of the onion that Tyler spoke about. That is his inner circle and all, and he literally, the entire government basically of Venezuela is cartel or otherwise involved in illicit activities. Venezuela is such a shithole that they literally have actual slavery, not just sex slavery. I mean actual slavery. And for anyone to be like, why we shouldn't just carpet bomb them into oblivion, I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't vote against it.
We're talking to each other on devices made by slave labor in China. Your outrage is situational.
I don't follow your logic.
Hold on.
Wait.
You said two things there,
weapons standing over him.
You completely contradicted yourself.
You opposed the intervention, and then you just said you're okay with carpet bombing. So which is it? I could understand it.
can understand.
Oh.
Okay,
Well,
well,
it's a
I'm
little
gonna,
seasoning. A little
I mean, I don't
intervention of
agree
seasoning.
with it, but I'm okay with them parking the boat off the shore.
Well, are you
Little
familiar with
seasoning.
gunboat diplomacy?
Yes.
Yeah, so you do understand that it's not about just parking the boat there just to like occasionally shoot around. Like there's a bigger like objective to all of this. Like
Yeah.
there's a bigger
I
goal
understand.
here, and it's unrelated, or at least only I would say.
If it's a side effect, if it is in fact a side effect of the gunboat diplomacy that Maduro caves or his lieutenants take his ass out, or there is some change that benefits us, great. If there isn't, we tried.
Okay, so I want to
Right,
answer
go
Dylan's
ahead,
question
Tyler.
as well. I got Dylan asked a question about the cost benefit analysis of doing this. The reason why we're doing it, like, what is the downside right now for anybody in any of these countries to the south of us that has a politician that takes cartel money? The government's not going to do much to them because they're fucking scared shitless of the cartel who kill politicians and police like 10 times the rate of what happens in like other countries, maybe higher than that. I think they reached like 50, 100 a year at one point. Like they're just politicians dropping left and what's to stop these people from taking the money? What deterring factor is there? Should we just ignore it and allow it to happen and just try to catch it on the border? And,
dude, we just pardoned a guy who took money from the cartels.
Yeah, again, I already addressed that anecdote. I'm talking about the overall empirical.
Well, no, I mean to your point, like to your question, like there's no incentive because there's no consistent threat from the United States for taking money from the cartels. I mean, dude, being a Latin American country is basically based on historical precedent. There's like a reason to be afraid of the United States at all times, right? But other than that, say it again.
You could have been a friend of the cartels that's willing to now work with the Trump administration and give them
to help Prospera. I understand that. There's
so that's a deal. That's somebody working with Trump.
It's a deal with a lot of things baked into it. Do you think that a guy who was connected to the cartels is going to go back down to Honduras and say, by the way, guys, I can't do that anymore. I got to help Prospera out. Peter Thiel really needs me. You know, like he's going to go right back into the same networks that he was connected to before because that's what his power is predicated on. And that's pretty much all over Latin America. A lot of those states are narco states. It's like,
or we gain something out of it because he's willing to work with us. The point of Venezuela,
but he could still be working with the cartels, dude. So it's not actually, it's not stopping the cartels, which was your initial assertion.
I'm making a point to what Dylan was talking about, the cost-benefit analysis of Venezuela, not that Trump's inconsistent, which he somewhat is. I'll give you that. Anyways, it's about establishing deterrence. And there's a bunch of people that take cartel money in all these countries. We're going into the one that the United States has been trying to get out of office for fucking 20 years, him and his predecessor. The one that everybody on the left and the right in politics agrees is stealing elections, oppressing his people, etc. This is like to show anybody that if you take cartel money, we are not fucking around. This is the same deterrence that Israel established in the Middle East.
But Tyler, that's the part that it falls apart at the end there because that precedent can't be established unless it's established in places other than just Venezuela. Otherwise, the only precedent you're setting is that if you're Venezuela and we don't like your regime, we'll take you out. But if everybody else is dealing with the cartel, it's fine.
It's not because they're Venezuela. It's already been established that Venezuela is refusing to cooperate in any way. They wouldn't take back their criminals.
Tyler, this isn't happening.
Hold on. Let me just jump in here. I want because I think that we can explore this a little further. I'm going to posit a position that I don't think anybody's represented, but I think should be represented because there's a group of people saying it. I'm one of the people saying it. I say we should just go invade this country, right, and just take it over. Let's actually do the regime change. Let's just go all out. Like Grid and Tyler haven't full on said it. I'm like, let's go in there. You know, I think it is. I'm not buying it's for drugs. It's bullshit. It's definitely for the natural resources and the oil and the petrodollar and fuck Russia and fuck this global life. That's why we're doing it. That's what we should be doing. I feel like we should just be honest and say that it's whoop ass time, and that's why we're going in there. That's what we should do. And like I think nobody here said that, so I'm gonna say it now. Like I think that we would be knocking one more little piece of the pie off that's in this little nasty alliance they have, and that you know that helps our American imperial intentions. And I think it would help places like Ukraine. I think it would help like places like Israel because we're knocking all these things down and we're helping our allies. Why are y'all so hesitant?
Because, dude, it's logistically fraught for a lot of reasons. For one thing, Venezuela is very mountainous. So it's not a matter of like you just send the military and their ground troops and it's just you set up a foothold and well, that's it, and we won. Yay! Like there's issues with supplying your troops. Venezuela has combined military strength, like conventional and paramilitary forces, of like 100,000 people. You know, there's renegade groups and factions that will vie for power after the government falls. You know, I already talked about this at the start of the panel. Then it becomes much more like Dylan was talking about the sunk cost already. Can you imagine the cost of trying to hold shit together in Venezuela after Maduro falls?
Easy.
It's
I've answered.
Comes Puerto Rico.
It's
second.
You ready for the solution? We figured it out. They did a good job. Rwanda, we hired them just like the French did. Rwanda cleaned up all their contracts. They know how to deal with militias. They know how to deal with the people in the mountains. Problem solved.
We already have somebody.
I think we lost Gibbs, but it was such a bad point. He lost his connection.
The cartel got him.
They already have somebody they want to put in place as the
Dude, Tyler would get his wish. Another Afghanistan if we fucking send troops into Venezuela. It'd be another 20-year struggle with nothing to gain from it.
Nothing to gain. Women getting education.
And it would probably
and living in unoppressed lives. Why do you hate women? Why do you hate women?
You're a great guy.
They were allowed to go to school. You know,
yeah, we can use PMCs. Do you not like what? You don't agree that we can use PMCs like Rwanda to clean out the narco terrorists?
I think it's a lot more complicated than you realize, and I think that's why they haven't. It's the same with Iran that I've always said to you. That's why they don't send the military in. If it was easy, they would just do it. They did it in a bunch of other countries.
Yeah, but we don't hold anything. The problem is now look, I could get on board.
That's the problem Gibbs, right there, Greg.
I could get on board with what Gibbs says. If we look,
it says yours
if
now.
If we sent the 160th SOAR down there, we sent 5th Group, we sent a bunch of we sent some guys down there that do serious shit and fuck shit up and took over the country, and we fucking kept it, and it became Puerto Rico the second. No problem.
But we don't do that.
U.S. territory. You can't be a citizen. But we rule everything. And
well,
we tax
okay. Can I just make a point, and not to get into Ukraine? I've had a million debates about Ukraine, a number with Dylan. Let me just if we purport to care about sovereignty, we can't just do things like that.
That's the problem. I don't think that. I mean, okay. I actually agree with you 100%. If we purport to care about sovereignty, I think that Urbo is the biggest lie of the last 20th century. Like we've seen, Russia doesn't believe in Urbo.
Somebody conquers you, and then we're
I mean, I just think it's a lie, and I think Russia is preemptive on proving that as a lie. Yeah, they've gone in there and invaded Ukraine. They've came up with bullshit and did it, and I think they, showed that the information closed.
But okay, part of the Russian
that doesn't mean sovereignty is a lie. That just means sovereignty, like law and order, is something that has to be maintained. If you don't maintain it, if you don't have a power base, then you don't have it. Venezuela doesn't have it because they're shit at managing their economy. There's been a successful sanctions campaign, successful pressure campaign, and so therefore right now the amount of sovereignty that they'd like to have is a lot less than what they actually have. But that doesn't mean it's dead, Gibbs. It just means you need to maintain it.
It's also there's also something to the idea. I know nobody wants to say this, but Russia's whole argument about invading Ukraine and their right to a big part of it, and yeah, it's a propaganda narrative, but nevertheless, is, well, the U.S. doesn't respect other people's sovereignty. Look at Iraq. Look at Syria. Look at Libya. Blah, blah, blah. We can't set that precedent and then expect other great powers not to do the same thing. And we can't set that precedent and not expect other countries to look at America and say, wow, fuck that. I'd rather do business with China, which is pretty much what happened in much of Africa. You know, they can establish developmental relationships with China that, yes, are exploitative, but they don't involve violent coercion or the threat of violent force.
Because we won't work with those countries in China. We won't work with Mali. We won't work with Ghana. We won't work with those countries because they literally are nothing but human rights violations.
Well, Mali, and Sahel, all the coup governments post-coup, I agree. It's because the coup governments are aligned with Russia. But you can't tell me all of the places that China is developing economically in Africa we wouldn't want to stake in. In fact, I'm pretty sure the IMF floated loans to those places.
Well, the IMF does that to control the currency of the world, but that's irrelevant. That's a dumb point.
No, it's not a dumb point. The IMF is an extension of American world hegemony. Everybody knows it. It's a means through right. So, but my point is, you would have a stronger American hegemony if that's really what you guys want. If we respect other countries' sovereignty.
Look, what I want is irrelevant because as a country, as a nation, we conquered the world and then we gave it all back.
Well,
So
we just
obviously, as a
lost
country,
it.
We don't
How's that
want
going?
to do that. We
How's that
don't want
going?
to do that. What do you mean?
We conquered the world for what, like 10 years? So much for
We conquered
that.
the world and then we gave it all back. We gave
How did we
Japan
conquer the
back
world?
to Japan.
Dude, we conquered the world
We
from
gave
like
Germany back to
1991 until
Germany.
2001. R.I.P. the American Empire. 10 years.
Well, also when we give stuff back, it's not just because we want to give it back. I mean, like making Japan a state would probably be a very difficult process that would come with a lot of resistance. Same thing with the Philippines. Same thing with, a lot of territory. It's part of the reason why many Republicans are uncomfortable with the idea of turning Puerto Rico into a state, even though it has an identifiable landmass, a population. So it's people say, oh, we gave it up like it was a gift, but I mean, after a lot of times
Right.
we used them. We used the Philippines for military purposes.
We don't really
I-
give back. We say, here, now you manage this the way that we want you to. It's sort of a
There's a few things I
Yeah,
wanted to get
you
into.
and
I
Bill.
wanted to game this
Go
out
ahead.
a little bit, Gibbs, if you'd let me. Like an
Go ahead. Yeah, go
actual
ahead.
a scenario, because I actually have some agreement with non-smoker here on the idea that if a nation is sovereign, it must be sovereign. Therefore, the United States cannot just say we don't like Maduro, therefore goodbye Maduro. That's why I said, is it within America's interest for Maduro to go? Yes. That doesn't necessarily mean that I support going in and removing Maduro, just that it'd be clearly within our interest
Correct.
if we had access to 740,000 more barrels a day and the largest oil reserves on the planet. It'd be within any country's interest to have access to those oil reserves, especially in an energy pinch. Number one, I don't think it would be like Afghanistan if we were to militarily intervene in Venezuela, like Gibbs and Tyler are suggesting. That doesn't mean that it would be fun or it would be good. It's just that this is the one memory and war memory most Americans have. It's that in Iraq, and I
What do
don't
you think
think
would
it
be
could
different about it?
necessarily be compared to those countries because number one, like the sects that led to a lot of the interfighting that left America kind of in the dust. Venezuela doesn't exist in that way. There's no Sunni, there's no Shia divide. These type of like religious and intertribal.
There's no
Those
Islam,
things don't exist. There are conflicts in Venezuela, conflicts between different gangs, conflicts between different like people who are power brokers who want to take over power, but it doesn't have a lot of the same religious connotations or like
That's true.
cross-border terrorist organizations that
Fair.
would be crossing borders. There'll be gangs, but it's I don't think it will necessarily look like that war. I do think that the biggest danger is we have a Libya style situation where we go in, we decapitate the leadership, we say yippee, whoever comes in next better not smuggle drugs into the United States, we leave, and then different gangs and power brokers fight over territory and land where the opposition would maybe take like a third of the country, the military would like take the capital, and then you just have a ton of violence and chaos where you're never really able to get the train back on the track. That's the thing that concerns me. So if we took it upon our own moral responsibility to go in there and say we're going to remove the government of Nicolas Maduro because it serves our interests, we might actually leave the Venezuelan people in a worse place. I don't think Venezuela improves until Maduro goes, but how he leaves, if we go in there and steal their revolution from them, that might end up derailing the train from the track in a way that's going to get a lot
now
of people
you're just
killed.
inviting the CIA to go in and do what the CIA does. Are you in the Ukraine currently, or are you back in the States?
I just got back from Ukraine a few weeks ago.
Okay, I was just curious.
There-
I didn't
there-
know, what time zone you were on.
Not to
I
be.
think the only scenario where the United States should maybe intervene is a scenario where the government has decided that a large-scale military crackdown in reaction to a large protest killing thousands of people, certain select strikes to stop teams headed out to kill protesters. I could imagine a scenario like that. But the
I don't
idea
even
that
think
we
you-
need to be the ones to go in there and
If he was the
create
one
it.
thing-
We need to
Well, Dylan, if
create
they were going to
an
do
overthrow.
that,
I
they
don't agree
could've-
with that.
Well, see, Dylan, if they were going to do that, this is why I'm much more in the like camp of like, yeah, it's just it's it's obviously not for drugs in my opinion. It's obviously take down the alliance like kind of thing in my mind. It's in our best interest. Like I fully am on board with that, right? If we were going to do that, he had already hired Cuban death squads to kill civilians. Like we have evidence of that. Like we know that already happened. Like if we were going to invade, I don't know why we didn't invade then. If that was going to be a reasoning, I don't know. Like I feel like now it's just more
Well,
timing
then my
appropriate,
argument
I
would
know.
have been if there was a time to intervene, it would have been when they opened
should have been then.
fire, not months after the fact, once there's a whole other different conglomeration of reasons
Or-
that are motivating us.
They stole two
Let's go to
elections.
Grid, then Tyler. Go
Right,
ahead,
yeah, I
Grid.
was gonna-
Yeah. Let me.
Okay,
So
Castle, go
that's a great point. But that you guys have made. The interesting thing about that is when we put the bounty in place and all of that. Currently, I don't believe as an American you can enter Venezuela. Like if you go there and they find you, well, first of all, they're not going to let you in the country. If you somehow manage to get in the country, like you cross a border somewhere, you come in through, some way, um, they're likely to kill you. So really, the only assets that we have left in the country are basically CIA and NSA and DIA and alphabet soup guys. That's it. We don't have anybody. We don't have anyone else in the country right now because they will literally kill you as an American if you're there. So that I think kind of plays to your point that you're right. Absolutely. That we could and we should probably just sit back and we may have missed the opportunity and just let the cards fall where they may and put the pressure on them and let them fold and then pick up the pieces with I think what you're kind of referencing is the idea of surgical strikes and then put some people in play, maybe even hire some of our own Cuban death squads to go over there. But it's an interesting dynamic. I think it's really fluid in Venezuela, and they're all psychopaths that are running around running that country right now. They're not like it's not like dealing with like normal politicians. So I think that we sometimes forget that.
I
Yeah.
want to
Can
talk
I-
about the sovereignty point
Wait,
that both you guys
Tyler,
brought
got
up
it.
real quick.
Yeah, we're going to Tyler with you. Go ahead.
All right, so the sovereignty point you guys brought up, bro. Yes, nations should have sovereignty, but sovereignty also comes with a set of rules and policies that you need to follow. And if you're rigging elections, killing your own people, jailing your political adversaries for no crime, you're stealing billions of dollars worth of other companies' money at gunpoint. And then on top of that, you are violating another nation's well-being by having state-sponsored terrorists, narco-terrorists, run illegal immigrants, some of which are violent, and drugs into those countries and killing politicians in many of those countries. Then yes, like eventually you have violated national sovereignty. When you're branching out, when Tren de Agua, who is hosted in Venezuela, who is working in coordination with the Venezuelan government, is going into several other nations and killing politicians, they don't get sovereignty arguments anymore. They're violating
So
other
then
people's
we
sovereignty.
lost it during Fast and Furious. Is that what you're saying?
Oh, I don't think Fast and Furious did all that. All it did was put a bunch of guns that we were supposed to be tracking into circulation so we could see where they were going, and then we lost track of those guns.
I understand
That was
what
a
it
big
is,
deal.
but your argument falls apart unless you're willing to use it both ways right there.
That's not a violation of sovereignty, though. That's just trying to track. That's how we get intel and things like that. The scandal was that we lost the guns.
We
and
get
then they were
intel on
used to
crime
kill-
by causing crime.
we put in guns into the gun trafficking was already going on. We took tagged guns and inserted them in there so we could
Right.
follow where they went. Yes, that's investigative
right.
crime. Yeah.
I understand that after you want Maduro gone, but I think that if we were to go in there and just remove him ourselves and put troops on the ground, I don't know if that support holds domestically in the United States. I'm just talking about this in practical terms. Fuck morality. In practical terms, I don't think Americans want 2 to 3 years in the Venezuelan jungle fighting gangs. They're going to be fighting about stuff that none of these soldier boys are going to have any knowledge about. They're going to have to get local translator. They're going to need to build an entire structure for something that Trump, I don't even think, is signed on to. Start some protest movement, and it gets to a point where the regime is going to collapse, and they have to use overwhelming violence to stop it. And at that point, we strike them once they start mowing down protests or something. Some inciting incident instead of us trying to create something, or revanchism, which the government of Venezuela has engaged in since the government of Hugo Chavez and before when it comes to Guyana. And there have been real threats towards the state of Guyana for quite a time now, which is actually on a path to produce more barrels of oil than Venezuela, just due to the efficiency of how they're working with American oil producers, how they're managing their resources much better. And Venezuela, in response to that, but also due to its revanchism, have talked about interventionism. These are two potential inciting incidents where our in Guyana's case, we can get the international community behind us because it would be a situation kind of like Kuwait. And in the other instance, the massacre would be so overwhelming, or this incident would be hopefully, or not hopefully, but if you would want this to succeed, would get such public reaction that the general Venezuelan public, who have probably already signed on to Maduro's leaving, could sign on to it. But outside of those two scenarios, which require more work than just the United States to get something done, I don't think everything else is a sure bet. I think it's actually a really risky endeavor.
They have
So why
20
not-
jets.
why not-
Let's
Oh,
go.
come on,
Let's go.
man.
I'm sorry. Go Castle. Yeah, go Castle.
I was just going to bring up because a lot of these scenarios involve either a strike or hoping that the Maduro regime falls in some way. But I think, Tyler mentioned it and Grid mentioned it in some way. They're not going to let Americans in. And also, they just had recent elections where Venezuelans voted for the opposition and they were obviously rigged against the opposition. So in that case, why not just have the international community, the IFES, that basically is for supporting rights to participate in free and fair elections, go in and make a deal with Maduro, say, if you conduct a fair election, we'll back away from, bombing the ships in the ocean or whatever. We don't have to strike anybody. We don't have to do anything militarily. And then they can have a free and fair election where the people can decide. I think that's a fair diplomatic way that maybe Rubio is talking about.
I know I'm the moderator and I'm not supposed to answer this, but I'm going to answer it. It's because they're a bunch of bitches. That's why. That's why. They're a bunch of bitches.
Who enforces that on the ground, though? Is that going to be
the
UN peacekeepers?
Yeah,
Is that
it'd be
going to
us.
be some
No, it'd have
coalition
to be
of
the UN.
countries?
It'd have to be they wouldn't let the US do it.
Oh,
right?
yeah, the
We wouldn't
UN.
have to
Oh,
be.
yeah.
I was just
So
saying it would
yeah,
have
the
to be
UN.
that would be the only way to an international organization.
And
like
do
that
we
be
think
involved
that
in
the
it.
blue helmets could deal with Venezuela's gangs?
Wait, why would that have to gangs have to do with the election though?
Well,
'Cause
just
that's who
because we
controls
won
the
an election doesn't
elections.
mean that like a free and fair election could take place.
Wait,
If
but that's not
there's nobody
that,
to
that wouldn't be
control
the
the
that
state.
wouldn't be the deal
if
though.
the government's broken down, you need somebody on the ground to stop the breakdown.
Right.
Or
Okay,
Dylan's
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Dylan
I'm
is
saying
absolutely
before.
right. 100%.
No, but Grid, you're acting like it's going to be overrun during the election. I'm saying you have to have an election, and then
It will.
if there's a fallout. Okay,
What are they gonna do?
if there's a
Like,
fallout,
I
then
guess
obviously you're
just
gonna have
walk me
people
through your
there. But
logic.
that's not gonna be part of the deal.
Castle, let me just walk you through your logic. All right, I just tell me where I'm wrong in this logic train that I'm about to give you. Okay, you tell me
Okay.
when. Stop. All right, IMF or whatever. They come in, they make these rules. They're gonna make it a free and fair election. Cool, we're coming. And then they decide they're gonna bring the UN peacekeepers. That's who's gonna back them up against the cartel of the sun and the Venezuelan government when they decide, go fuck yourself. We can't buy them off. And what's gonna happen? The UN is going to put their little hats on and they're going to put their head between their legs and they're going to roll over and say, fuck me, daddy, like they do every single time. And push comes to shove. Is that not exactly what's going to happen? We're going to be at square one, like that we were right beforehand, except maybe now we've had an international incident.
I mean, if Venezuela wants to start killing people from other countries and start an international war, good luck. Then they're basically screwing themselves even worse. They want to do that.
Or even a step before that, they could just do like Iran did and say, nope, you can't get in here. Like, oh yeah, we're here to make
Okay,
sure
but then the deal's off. I mean, I'm saying if they don't want to do that, then the deal's off. But I'm just saying that's the opportunity that they have if they don't want to get bombed or if they don't want to be invaded militarily. I'm not saying that it's the best.
But hold on, so then they just bought like time indefinitely by like doing this.
Yeah, they're buying time. They're buying time, but I think that's beneficial if for Maduro if he wants to buy more time. But I think that staves off any military intervention.
Well,
did you
I just got a jet real quick. I got a jet real quick. I'm not going to tell you the reason. Well, I was chalk it up to I'm scared that non-smoker is going to crush my argument, and I'm running from him. Let's go with that.
That's right. That's right. Another foe vanquished.
I do want to bring up one thing I'd be remiss. I feel like it's pertinent based off recent news. Do we think there's any concern with the Pete Hegseth and the Survivors scandal here? Is this going to be
Tyler left just as you brought that up, huh?
Yeah, coincidence. Let's see. He must have known somehow. What are our thoughts here? Castle, why don't you start us off with that? You think it's going to be a spicy story?
Well, I think it is a spicy story, but if history has shown us anything, I mean, with the whole incident with Hegseth before this, Signalgate, I think it was called, I really don't see him being let go in this situation by the Trump administration. So I think Congress will make a fuss about it. they'll try to make it a big thing, but at the end of the day, I don't think it really changes anything.
Process is the
Is it a
punishment.
war crime? Is it a war crime?
Based on what I've
Yes.
been reading, and I know there's a lot of classified information out there that hasn't been released, it seems like it would be a war crime, based on the second strike.
No, yeah, we'll just go to circle. Dylan, what do you think?
Whether it's a war crime or what I think of
Or
Pete
both? Like,
Hegseth,
what do you think of this?
would I go get a beer with him? Like,
This specific situation with the kill the survivors thing, and whether they're not.
oh well,
whether it's war crime.
there's a bunch of things you would have to assume in order for this strike to be legal. Number one, you'd have to assume that the president is, by ordering these strikes as commander in chief, he's acting within his legal authority to do so in the first place, both by using the authorization for use of military force, designating these group terrorist organizations, even though they're largely engaging in the financial transaction of drugs for profit. In order to say that that's legal, that's the first thing, that even engaging in any bombing by using that pathway is legal, and that the president of the United States doesn't have to ask Congress. Then you have to assume that the way that the strike was conducted is legal. And what we know right now is that there was two strikes. There was an initial strike that killed, I believe it was 9 people, and then another strike which killed the remaining 2. We have not seen the footage. Footage does exist of this. I hope the administration posts the footage online, as they have posted footage of other strikes before, so I don't know what would restrict them from doing it. But from the senators who saw it and were a part of the briefing that happened earlier today, it seemed that there's some consensus that there's no evidence that Hegseth himself ordered to kill them all, which was the way people, one of the quotes that people were using. But it seemed that there was also one of the quotes that stuck with me from one senator was, it was one of the most concerning things I've seen in the way that the second strike was done. And so that leads me to believe that there's a good chance that the boat that they were using was disabled, that they weren't able to continue to move along with that boat, and that the strike is being based off of the legal idea that, well, those guys in the water who can no longer move around might call back to their buddies, and they might come and grab the drugs and then save the drugs. And since the drugs are a weapon against America, we have the right to blow it up. This legal logic, I don't think, will hold. I think there's too many barriers in between the legal assumptions you would have to make to say that this strike was legal and legally conducted. You would have to assume, first off, that the administration has completely told the truth. You'd have to assume that it's legal for them to be doing these strikes in the first place. And you would have to assume that the use of drugs as a weapon, as an attack against America is a fine concept, and that they were still somehow a threat after their boat was disabled. There's so many barriers you have to cross to say that this is not a war crime, that it's going to be, I think the administration is going to be on the defense for it for a bit.
Dusty, what do you think?
After that, I think that he basically stated everything well. I agree with Dylan. And I think that we would need to know what the reason was for the secondary strike. But I think I agree with everything before that, right? Like, we would need to get all the way through, this is legal, this was a legal action, to then get to the question of, well, why did you strike him again?
All right, non-smoker.
Yeah, of course it's a war crime. I mean, I think the strikes themselves are probably a war crime, and I don't know, like, in terms of, is there going to be a blowback or like repercussions or anything? No, I think, in my view, people like this tend to act with impunity for the very fact that they know that there will be no blowback. It's like a micro shock and awe, right? Like, why don't we do the most visually? And in this case, obviously, the footage was not released or whatever, not the public anyway. But like, it's about the viciousness of this. It's about setting an example, and I don't know. I really have no faith that anybody will be prosecuted under the due process of law for what is obviously a war crime. Yes.
All right. Well, this will be a first if it happens, but 100% consensus going around here. I have a feeling the grid's not going to agree with the rest of y'all on this. So,
Yeah, I don't agree at all.
What are your thoughts?
I don't agree at
on
all.
this?
If your job is to destroy a target, you destroy a target. If it takes 2 missiles, you use 2 missiles. It's the end of story. We don't know what their ROE is. We don't understand what they we are making not even armchair quarterback calls on something that professionals do. These aren't idiots. These aren't people that just do shit for no fucking reason. These are fucking professionals that did their fucking job and they did it well. And that's the end of the story.
It's their integrity that's in question, not their competence.
Yeah, they're also not good people.
Well, so I do not in general question the integrity of
well,
Wait,
at what
do
point would
think
you?
that the
At
US
what
has
point
ever
would you
committed
question
a war
it?
crime?
I'm sorry?
Well,
Has the
I do
US
want to
ever
put out.
committed a war crime in your view, though?
No,
Greg?
no, we've only committed war crimes and wars we've lost.
Well, actually,
so.
Canadians
Right, the only
define
war
the
crime is not killing
reasons
enough
we
of them.
have the term war crime. So I don't know that we've ever risen to that level of, but we'll figure it out.
So then,
sorry, you
can
were gonna
other
ask
countries
something,
commit
Dylan,
war
I
crimes?
apologize.
Can other countries commit war crimes?
I don't know. Have they?
I'm asking you.
You
By your
define war-
standard, can they not?
By my standards?
Yeah.
I believe
Their
that
standards,
an
don't you?
example of war crimes such as beheading unarmed men, yes, has happened.
Right. Would that constitute a war crime of a different variety or category than killing possibly just random people on the sea?
No, that's not the same thing. If you think it's the same thing, you're a complete fucking idiot.
Well, I
There's a
mean,
difference.
you can call me names, but I mean,
Explain the
I just,
difference.
what's the
I'm
distinction?
not calling you a name. I'm saying that if you believe
I'll
that
be the idiot. What's the
literally,
difference?
Yeah,
literally
what's the
beheading
distinction?
somebody with a fucking sword that is unarmed is a war crime, that and that equates somehow
So,
to sending
this
It's
sword
only
or
war
is it the
crimes to
unarmed?
behead
Yeah.
people. Is that what you're saying?
That we
As
do
long as
not,
their head is
you don't even know
attached.
the ROE. You don't know if anyone was armed. You know nothing, and you're trying to make an armchair quarterback
You know as much
call.
as I do.
Right, which
If
is
they're
why
on,
I
if they're on a
don't-
sinking
as far
ship,
as I
they're
know,
probably
it's
not
not-
armed and dangerous to us.
Well,
It's safe to say that they're not
literally,
dangerous
people in
to.
Afghanistan are not armed and dangerous to me, but yet we kill them.
Yeah, I have a problem with
In
that
war
too,
crimes,
incidentally.
we've committed a
We're
lot.
just trying to
Well, no,
figure out
in
where
this
your
case,
standard
I think
is.
it's interesting because the argument being made is that they are dangerous to you. The argument that's being made is that the drugs that are being brought into the United States is a threat to you and to me and to everyone in this room. That's a threat to American citizens. That it is a type of war, and therefore that gives us authority to strike them. But I would make the argument, and I know many people have been destroyed by drugs, but you have to make a conscious decision to purchase a drug. You have to make a conscious decision. I'm going to buy heroin. I'm going to go buy cocaine. I'm going to go do this. You might be compelled by addiction, but that's already once you've signed in you've already punched your card at that point.
You have to go quite
right?
far out of your way
And so-
to get the.
To just say unambiguously
I gotta make a
that
libertarian
this
of you yet,
100%
Dylan.
is the same and can be treated the same legally when no previous president, including those who have actually declared the war on drugs, have ever gone this far before. I think it's getting way ahead of ourselves before we even talk about this specific incident. And from the briefing today, we know that there were 4 strikes after the initial there was the initial strike and then the follow-up strikes after the 9 people were killed and there were 2 people remaining out there. I understand that there are people in the U.S. Army that are fantastic people. I was raised by a U.S. Marine, but after, spending a little time talking to people from across the globe, international fighters, Ukrainian fighters, people all across the world, all sorts of people can end up committing war crimes. I don't think that there is an army in the world that is invincible against the disgusting allure of committing atrocities against your fellow man for reasons of revenge, for reasons of like sadomasochistic like type of sexual desire, whatever it is. There are people like that, I think, in every army, and it is the job of the army to keep those types of people in check and try to reduce the amount of those people that are in the armed forces. So while I do trust, U.S. service members, I don't necessarily trust every single soldier once given an illegal order to say, wait a second, the U.S. Army handbook says, or, wait a second, I don't know if this order is 100% moral. If that was the case,
In this case, it would be the
then,
Navy.
things like my lie wouldn't have happened.
Or a
Texas
bunch of
has been on the
different
record
incidents in
telling
Iraq.
soldiers to not talk about crimes they may have committed overseas too. So like this is well known that the U.S. has committed war crimes in Afghanistan before. It's not out of the question that we would do it in this situation. But also like, even if let's say somebody in the U.S. was selling drugs and you were buying them willingly, nobody would say that you're allowed to kill your drug dealer. either. That would still be a crime. So I don't see how even somebody in a boat trying to deliver drugs to wherever it is would still be like a legal strike. It's just something that is
Legal in the Philippines.
overreach.
Yeah, I mean, just
Right.
to Dylan's point, quick too, not to keep piling on, but like,
Hold
if
on,
you
hold
if you
on,
create a
hold on.
precedent,
One
now
at a
let me just
time.
finish. If
Yeah,
you
let him
create
go, let him go. Great.
if you create a precedent, if you
Whatever.
create a precedent where anybody shipping drugs is potentially an enemy combatant, then by that logic, you should be carrying out lots and lots and lots of more strikes, right? I mean, anybody involved in the drug trade is a potential target, because therefore they represent the same level of threat as the
you have a
people you
problem with
killed
that?
in the Caribbean. And well, my issue with that is that more so if they're following through that as like the policy, which was I guess one interpretation of what a war on drugs might end up looking like, I would question why they're not following through with it. And then I would say, okay, this seems to convey to me that that's not the objective here. It's not about actually stopping drug dealers or viewing drugs as a hostile threat to the
Sure,
lives
I
of
mean,
Americans.
you
It's
can
about gunboat
assign
diplomacy
you
and
can
trying to
assign
force
whatever
regime change.
motivation you want to it, but what we're dealing with is what the rules of engagement, what the military is acting on. You can so the problem that the
Dude,
disconnect
this
that
is
you
like
keep
saying you're only going to
wanna keep
prosecute murders
assigning
from like
you wanna
one
keep
group of people.
assigning a motivation to people who are following orders that thus far have not been challenged and
I'm
won
talking about
and
the people who
and
gave the
beaten in
orders.
a court of law. So until they are, they're legal orders, and they can legally blow those fucking boats away.
What
Now,
about the
if
people who
that
gave the
changes,
orders?
I will be the first one to say, "Yep, they can't do that anymore."
Can
But
orders
right
be
now,
illegal?
as of right now, it's perfectly legal for those boats to get blown to hell and back.
Dude, your homework
Well,
assignment
I
for
don't
tonight
think
is
it's
to
the
Google
court decision that would
jingoism.
decide whether it's legal or not. It would be illegal. Like there are things that have been done by people in positions of power that are illegal and never go to a courtroom. That doesn't mean those things were
Yes, but
legal. It just means that they weren't
currently, this
prosecuted.
has been examined and has been determined thus far to be legal. And now,
By
if
who?
they- now,
By
if that
who?
if that changes, then we'll take care of it.
Wait, Chris, who
Actually,
determined it was
defended-
legal?
Okay, they have actually.
No, but who? I don't know.
have
if
my
they
notes.
have.
I apologize. I put my notes away, so I have to pull it back up. But fuck, I don't even know what I did with them.
Of course, it's trust me, bro.
Trump was using the not the War Powers Act, but a version of that. It expired. It was 90 days, I believe, is what he had for the first segment of it. That's expired. He's extended it again with the tacit blessing of Congress, which I believe is. I guess they can do that. I don't know. There's some question about that. And then they've got the Monroe Doctrine as well. So right now, again, right now, unless someone, so okay, simple question: is there any legal challenge to this that is gaining traction and/or winning?
Well, that's what the congressional insight is going to determine based on the footage that they release, and then also whatever reporting came
Yes,
out
but
from the
this has been
decision that
going
was
on
being
for
made.
months. This has been going on for months. Has there been any congressional challenge to this or other challenge on legality that has gained traction and/or won? If
Is that what
not, then
determines
it's
your
fucking
opinion on the matter?
legal, and you can whine about it all you want. You can cope and seethe and cry all you
Because
want, but
they
it's legal, and he can do it.
Uh-huh.
I do want to throw
Yeah,
out there
yeah,
that the president's party does control Congress, and
Right.
the president has done things that were illegal that the Congress did not
illegal.
want to check him on, that the courts came out and then said, actually, this is unconstitutional. Actually, you cannot do this. And so I don't think that congressional action is necessarily the dictator of what is legal or not legal.
Well, then
Of course
it'll
it's
go to the
not.
Supreme Court.
Dusty, yeah, go ahead. You're on the right, like more than these other three guys. They're all like left-leaning individuals. I would think we're on the right. What?
He's
Why
in
are
his
you in that
libertarian
camp?
feels right now, though.
Yeah. What
Right
are
now,
your thoughts,
it's
Jake?
stuck here. I mean, I think that the claim that they haven't there's not legal action against it means it's legal and Grid knows that it's fucking retarded. By that logic,
been
anything
challenged.
that's not anything.
I mean, was
Grid, would you say
Haditha
that
like
anything
not a
that's
war crime in
prosecuted is
Iraq?
legal?
Was Haditha not a war crime in Iraq because all those people were like let off the hook?
I don't know. Was it?
I mean, I'm asking. This is a ridiculous
You're
standard.
you're trying to,
Dude, by your criteria, America can never
You're
commit a
trying-
war crime because of the fucking Monroe Doctrine. What are you talking about?
Regardless of whether,
That's
regardless of
goddamn
that,
right.
that terrible
Just because we
cover
say
over-
this is our hemisphere and we can do whatever we want,
Hold on, go
it's
ahead.
ridiculous.
Go ahead, Dusty, go ahead, Dusty.
I want to
Dusty,
know,
go ahead.
Grid. Do your
I'm sorry, I
your
can't hear you.
opinion on it is you can't hear me? Am I low?
Yeah, you're a little low. Well, he was talking too, so.
Yeah.
Is
Go
your
ahead.
opinion, Grid,
Mhm.
just a byproduct of what Congress does or of legal action?
that's better.
Do you have an opinion of your own, or do you just
I've already
the only
said
thing
my
that you
opinion.
know is
My
that you like the
opinion
taste
is
of
that-
boots?
Yeah, my opinion is that I don't have a problem with them blowing the boats out of the water. I just don't.
What is your favorite flavor of boot?
Yeah.
I don't know. What's yours? You might want to give me some references there. I don't know.
All right. Well, all that. Let's. We're about at that time. Let's get some closing thoughts here. And shout outs to anything y'all got going on. We'll start with you, Castle. Any closing thoughts? Shout outs. What you got going on? Talking to people.
Cool. Yeah. So closing thoughts. I mean, I think I don't know. It sounded like outside of Grid and Tyler, and there was even maybe some agreement on some of the things that Dylan or Not Smoker was saying about whether it's really drug related or not. It sounds like we at least got closer to acknowledging the truth of the motives behind why we're doing these things. It doesn't sound like at the end we got to agreement about whether legality matters or not. But I think just to stand on principle, I think that should matter. And I think at the end of the day that whether or not we're successful in using our show of force to encourage or force change in Venezuela, there's a long road ahead that we may not be as well prepared for, and we have to accept and acknowledge that. I think Maduro is a bad actor at the end of the day, but I think that at the same time we have to be careful about how much time and resources that we spend in it, because America right now also should be focused on more than Venezuela and what they're doing. And so I think the president would be better served and better advised to focus on economic issues at home rather than trying to stop every drug runner coming into the international waters off the coast of Venezuela. So at the end of the day, I think if the president wants to, he certainly can get us involved in this and spend trillions or billions of dollars more and not focusing on us, or he can go ahead with it and see that it's going to be unpopular as an issue here at home if we get involved militarily, and it may not even work out in Venezuela. So I think just the cost benefit of this all is not worth it, in my opinion.
All right.
And if you want to follow me, Castle Guard YT at Twitter and YouTube.
Yeah, check him out, everybody. Check him out. Mr. Burns.
So I think that the United States should be engaging in a policy of cooperation with nation states if we want to fight drugs, unless we want to put our troops on the ground and specifically go in there and remove their governments, whether it be Mexico, Colombia, Venezuela. And the American, not only do I not think that's a good idea, but the American public are not signed on to it. The American public do not support it. And so I think this would be doomed to fail by whatever next administration would come in, undo this operation, then have it be nothing more than another failed American project and at a big price tag on it. Because the next administration would either end it by pulling out of it and trashing it in order to get into power in the first place, or they would continue with the failed project and just make it a bigger sunk cost. So I don't think that we should be going in there and removing them with force. I don't think that strikes can guarantee an outcome. And with so many of those outcomes being lawless hellscape with gangs controlling this part of the country and gangs controlling that part of the country, that doesn't make much sense for me either. The only scenarios I can think of is if there is a unending avalanche of violence that makes it so that there's not really much of a choice for the international community to do something but act like they should in Sudan, like they should in other situations where the humanitarian catastrophe continues to spiral, or they take a revanchist stance where, due to the international pressure on Maduro and due to the economic struggles, he decides we're going to invade Guyana in order to rebring national settlement, try to bring back support for me, something like that. Those are the only two scenarios where I could see the United States being able to intervene militarily and have both international support to help stabilize the situation afterwards, or the domestic bottom-up support in Venezuela and at home to make it so that we wouldn't have to manage the whole situation ourselves.
All right, thank you so much. And again, go check out his new documentary. It's really good. He does good work. It was really cool seeing on the ground action. Some people just talk about things. Dylan actually O's and B's about things. That's a really cool thing. Mr. Dusty, thanks for joining us for your first time here. I'm glad you were able to come join one of my panels. Was real happy to get you here. Hope you enjoyed it. Any closing thoughts?
Thank you for having me, and I hope to come again. Pause. My name's Taylor. My channel is The Powder Dusty on YouTube. I think that the official, as far as the information that we have goes, the reason we state for meddling with boats outside of Venezuela is insufficient. Like I said at the beginning, I think we should end the war on drugs entirely, and so I think that that's unjustified entirely. As far as, and I think that everybody else on the panel agrees that that's not a sufficient justification for what we're doing, which is why we spent the whole discussion looking at other reasons why we could speculate that they're doing it. I mean, it's really hard to say if those other speculative reasons are justified because we don't know what they are. But from what we do have, I just don't see how anybody could support just blowing up random ass boats and then going, well, they're drugs.
All right. Thank you so much. And where can they find you?
Powdered Dusty on YouTube.
Fantastic. Thank you. And Mr. Non-Smoker.
All right. Twitch.tv/non_smoker. Catch the struggle session every 2 weeks out on WUSB Stony Brook, WUSB.FM. So I'm completely in the camp of non-interventionism once again. It's nice to know I'm not totally alone. I think the one thing that has come out of this discussion that should be clear to any impartial observer is that drugs have very little to do with this. It's clearly part of a multi-decades-long approach towards Venezuela in which we've tried to push regime change and failed. I oppose regime change. I oppose arbitrarily removing governments we don't like and expecting it to just work out. It almost never does. Whether that be through military intervention directly, like invading, or targeted strikes, as was suggested before, or economic means like sanctions, which kill innocent fucking people, or gunboat diplomacy. Any of those things, I'm completely against it because it almost never works. It hurts the people there and it makes the world at large angrier at us, trust us less. It weakens America. It's bad for Americans. Far worse than shipping drugs into this country. I find it absurd the notion that we would send troops into Venezuela who might go there, suffer PTSD, ironically enough get addicted to fucking drugs, come home and then not be sufficiently taken care of by the federal government, and there are people who will still continue to advocate for an intervention after that. The whole thing is really disgusting. I'm opposed to it 100%, and I think you should be too. May Allah awaken the people and help them to see the evil doings of Israel and the United States.
Thank you so much. And Grid, last but not least.
Yeah. We just need to sink some more boats.
And where can they find you?
That was actually the entire subject of tonight. I mean, we had to talk about a lot more things because honestly, there's just no getting around. We just need to sink more boats. We went down an entire
with great
river of
ones.
hope, a lot of seething. We did agree with Dylan on a lot of the points that he made about why it was probably not worthwhile to invade or get into an Afghanistan type situation. Although he thinks it'll work, I don't. I don't want us to get into that sort of deal with any other country. I don't think we've ever we've not had a good track record with regime changes over the past 70 fucking years that we've been trying it. You can find me at An Unreasonable Man, and I just, I say important things and do important things sometimes.
And you have a show tomorrow, don't you?
I do have a show tomorrow. I do.
Where can we
tomorrow.
find your boat at so that we can
My boat?
make sure it's taking your boat?
My boat's
Yeah,
my
yeah, we want-
driveway. My boat's my
Okay.
driveway.
Oh.
I know
You hear
exactly
that,
what
Trump?
like that.
Is it a cigar boat? Cigar boat by chance?
It is not a cigarette.
Doesn't matter.
boat.
It's full of drugs and illegals.
Yeah. Mm. Now
Well, I
gotta
mean,
watch
if you're
it.
on there, it's certainly full of illegals.
Well, on that note, thank you so
I
much.
am in the boat. Wink, wink.
I'm gonna end out, raid out. We're gonna raid Hot and Streamy. She's one of the homies. Thank y'all so much, and thank y'all for all being here. I appreciate it. I look forward to hitting y'all up soon for something. Thanks so much.
Cool.
Bye, guys.
All
Y'all
right,
be
thanks,
good.
You guys.
Bye bye.
Well, yet another debate. Same as they always are, huh? I don't know. Some frustrating things there, but could be worse, I suppose. Ugh, is YouTube still up? I hope so. Let's see. We lost, yeah, we lost connection there for a minute. It's only one viewer over on YouTube, but still going, nonetheless. So, I don't know. What'd you guys think? I mean, Dylan, I don't know. Dylan. He still says things that are like, ugh. But, yeah, I had to message him on the side with some minor corrections. I mean, he even mentioned that there were no, like, tribal groups in Venezuela, which is like, you know, like trying to draw the distinction between Venezuela and Syria. Or was it Venezuela and Iraq? I'm not sure. He's actually not correct on that. There's no religious divide in terms of, like, different sects of Christianity, but there are indigenous groups in Venezuela that have clashes with the government all the time. Obviously, there's mostly narco-terrorist gangs like ELN and FARC that are Colombian that have clashes with the government as well. You know, and in a power vacuum scenario, those are the groups that you have to worry about. You know, but, you know, and obviously groups still loyal to Maduro. You know, and then a potentially just overall hostile population to your presence. It just doesn't work. I don't know. Invading Venezuela wouldn't work. Pressuring the government to step down hasn't worked. Pressuring people within Maduro's government to betray him hasn't worked either. You know, they kept mentioning the bounty. Oh, the bounty. There's millions of dollars on Maduro's head. So why hasn't anybody turned Maduro in? Here's why. I didn't even get a chance to really talk about this, but here's why, and then I'll sign off because it's late. But so most of the people in Maduro's government, in the regime, are part of either the military or the intelligence apparatus or other groups, like paramilitary groups. And so there's layers to this system of power surrounding him. And so the way this works is there's little incentive to kill Maduro if you're in the military, therefore claiming yourselves as the rightful heirs to power and, you know, traditional junta, coup d'etat, that style, because then you're going to be warring with all the other factions for power. There's no sense of togetherness. There's also the little issue of that Maduro's government is built on a spoil system. So the people within his government get preferential mining contracts, be they gold or rare earths or other things. You know, it creates a scenario where the incentives are far less, and many of those contracts or agreements are illegal. So in the event that there was a coup in Venezuela, many of the people in the government would go to jail. So of course they're not going to support a new regime coming in, much less an opposition-led regime or an American-backed one. You know, I mentioned have you ever heard of, I don't know, the Andes fucking mountains? Like, there's a reason they don't send troops into Venezuela. If it was simple, they would just do that. You know, we had a really good relationship with the Colombian government for a very long time. And the Colombian government doesn't have a great relationship with these narco-terrorist groups like ELN or FARC or Venezuela. We could have just, in conjunction with Colombia, conducted an invasion into Venezuela if it was that simple. It's not that simple. It's actually very complex, logistically fraught. And yeah, like, it would lead to American military personnel being massacred in the jungle. It's not to say that we wouldn't win at some point, but it could be several years. And then victory would be unclear. It would be this thing that the government would obfuscate through a lack of attention anyway. And, just like Iraq, like we were over in Iraq for years and years and they just stopped talking about it after a while. It was like, are we even there still? I don't know. And then all these, like the drugs keep flowing. I mean, it's so obvious. So it can only come down to being partisan. And that the guys who were supporting this are just so obviously partisan that they can't have an honest discussion, which is fine. Yeah, I disagree with your view here overall on some nuances. Well, I'd love to hear that. I mean, which part? I'd love to hear that perspective. I consider it a very informed opinion, but there's potential holes in my argument. That might be fair. Like Afghanistan, exactly. And targeted strikes, I mean, dude, how did that work in Iran? We did targeted strikes in Iran, right? How did that... And by the way, Dylan mentioned Sudan. Why aren't we doing targeted strikes in Sudan? If targeted strikes would really end the genocide in Sudan, why aren't we doing it? Why? I don't know. Is it because targeted strikes sounds like a really good idea if they're done with perfect surgical precision? Like you only kill the bad guys and you don't kill the good guys? We got these special missiles that only hit bad guys and not good guys. So it's fine. We just use the bad guy missiles. The problem with that is it's a fucking very complicated situation. And even look at do you guys remember in the 90s when the U.S. military tried to kill a Somalian leader, the Black Hawk Down incident? Surgical precision leaves a lot to be desired. Precedent has shown us. It's not easy to do that, and that's the reason we only do it in certain instances is because there's a bigger geopolitical goal. And what is the bigger geopolitical goal in Venezuela? It's economic warfare against China. That's it. It's not about Russia, right? Russia is on the cusp of victory. We're giving Russia numerous concessions in peace negotiations, hoping that they'll accept those. Venezuela's economic relationship with Russia is marginal for Russia. It's massive for Venezuela, but it's marginal for Russia. It's not going to cost Russia anything if Venezuela is taken out. So, what's it about? It's about China, who buys most of their oil. It's about China, who controls the rare earths market pretty much entirely. They're by far the world's largest holder of rare earths. So, I don't know. You're focusing on minor relations of powers, giving them maybe a bit too much importance. Not saying they don't exist, but maybe you are missing the big point. A huge part of the population forget about all of this when is about the higher empire fight. Well, so you're saying the people will band together against the gringo imperialists. That's certainly a factor. I don't mean to gloss over that, but I'm saying that the government is coup-proof. In a different scenario, you could help initiate a coup without even having to get directly involved through using your intelligence agencies, etc. Your VC. Okay. My VC. Hey.
Hey, man. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I sent you a link to the voting irregularities. How you say that word?
Irregularities.
Irregularities. Yeah. It shows like a lot of controversy over the election. They say, Maduro just claimed that he was victory, but the Actos, right? I guess the data that the opposition ran away with and said that it was legit. there's a lot of like fraudulent votes. And I sent you the video where this guy's just coming over it, and briefly, as soon as he gets into it, you just see tons of like repeated letters and signatures and whatnot. And so, like, someone mentioned in the debate, like, oh, he's illegitimate because he lost an election. And I was trying to get you to watch the video so that you just didn't concede that point.
I
It's just
know.
like,
Dude, I thought of you as soon as he brought it up, and it was the kind of thing where, like, okay,
we're conceding. It goes into their propaganda, like, oh, he's illegitimate. And it was very genius of the CIA-funded opposition to cause a controversy where his legitimacy by election was compromised, right? Like, if they don't outright steal the election, the number two result would be that he would be deemed as cheating based on these falsified votes, right? And
Right.
so I think it's fair for us. It's fair for us based on the video and then all those falsified fucking signatures based on a mass scale could end up to being hundred thousands of votes, right? If you have an organized group, maybe 10,000 people or even 1,000 people just falsifying many votes, right? We don't know what scale this operation will be on, but it's not like something that the CIA is against doing, right? They're all for rigging elections, rigging the judicial system, the military, any means to oust a socialist leader. So yeah, I was disappointed you didn't bring it up. Just like it's not to take one side or another, but it's like how do you know? Like as outside voices saying that we know 100% certain that he rigged his election, that's false. Trump doesn't even know who won the 2020 election. So how the fuck are we gonna say, this other country's their election was rigged?
Yeah. So look, and I'm not putting this on you, but I mean, I see that you sent it at like 8:30. I just haven't done enough. I didn't have enough research, like basis on the elections to get into it, and I just don't feel confident going into like the nuances about the election. I do think it's actually it's a perfectly valid argument to say, hey, even if there's inconsistencies in the election, there's zero proof that Maduro completely rigged it and therefore it's illegitimate. Like there's no basis for that at all. I also felt like that could have gone into a tangential thing, which again, I didn't feel confident I had enough information to argue the point.
Yeah, I mean, but it's a fair argument just to be like, how do we know? Like, because everyone that speaks about it speaks about it with like the utmost certainty he cheated. Like, meanwhile in our country, we don't. Like I said, the Republicans, they don't even know who won the 2020 election, right? So it's like, how the hell are you gonna say that? Oh, this other election, which has this obvious, which is the video I gave you, has obvious falsified votes. It's obvious. It's there, documented, right? This citizen journalist was like, yeah, look at all these signatures, they're all the same. So like on a massive scale, with the CIA, the money of the CIA and the U.S. government, they can easily hire tens of thousands of people to falsify the election.
Yeah.
Easily. With the kind of money that we have behind us, because they get paid. Like my girlfriend lives in Colombia, she gets paid like $5 a day. So you're saying like, hey, I'll give you $10. And you sign so many, which is like double what a daily wage for people out there would be. I'll give you $10 to sign 100 votes. You know what I'm saying? It's so easily done. And so to just anyone that says definitively he cheated, they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Anyway, that's quickly what I just wanted to critique you on.
That's fair.
Have a good night, non-smoker.
All right, man.
Yeah,
I'll catch you.
Catch you later, bro.
All right. Red Maze, everybody, friend of the show. All right, I'm going to go to bed, but please tune in Sunday, noon. Thank you guys so much for coming. Sunday, noon is the Joe Costello interview. I know it's early. I don't know what time you guys are all on, but it's going to be, Red Maze is awesome. It's a very long, complex story written by massive sabotage at the beginning of the conflict. Thank you. Sunday, noon. We got the interview, Joe Costello. Come check it out. I recommend the book, but I'm not going to force anybody to buy it. The Politics of Ape and Machine, Power as Organization. Looking forward to it. And I'll see you guys then. Thanks again for coming.